The scene opens in a vast desert under a clear sky. A group of bandit-like warriors stands alert, scanning their surroundings as tension builds in the air. One of the men senses something wrong and raises his hand. Light suddenly gathers around his palm, signaling an attack as the others react and brace themselves. From a distance, several fighters rush forward with weapons drawn. Dust rises as they charge, forming a loose formation while preparing to strike together. Before they can close the distance, a powerful force slashes through the air. The attack lands instantly, cutting down the front line and leaving the remaining warriors frozen in shock. One of the attackers lunges forward and swings his weapon with full force. The blow lands directly, sending blood spraying as the impact echoes through the battlefield. The wounded man lets out a broken cry and collapses, his body giving way as blood pours from his mouth and neck. The blonde-haired fighter watches in silence, his face splattered with blood. His expression remains calm and unreadable, showing no hesitation after the strike. In the next instant, he raises his weapon high and slams it down mercilessly. The body crashes into the ground with a heavy impact, marking the end of the fight for his opponent. The blonde-haired fighter pants heavily, blood dripping down his face as exhaustion finally catches up to him. His grip on the weapon loosens, but he remains standing. Seeing his condition, the surrounding men shout angrily, cursing him and labeling him a monster for what he has done. Despite his shaky posture, he steadies himself and lifts his head. His stance shows fatigue, but there is no sign of surrender. Sensing an opening, the remaining fighters rush in together, shouting that he is exhausted and urging each other to finish him at once. Close-up shots show his blood-soaked face as he struggles to breathe. His heart pounds violently, and every breath comes out strained and uneven. Blood fills his mouth as he exhales, the pain intensifying with each breath. His condition worsens, making even breathing feel unbearable. From a low angle, his battered body sways as blood and sweat drip down. He can no longer tell which is which, but he forces himself to stay conscious. Suddenly, his body is flung upward as another impact hits. Below him, the remaining enemies continue their assault, pressing forward without hesitation. As blood runs down his hand, his body reacts on its own. The pain sharpens his awareness, and something inside him suddenly shifts. A system notification appears one after another, activating multiple hidden traits related to endurance, weapon mastery, and hand control. In midair, the exhausted fighter is surrounded by enemies closing in from below. They shout that he is worn out and urge each other to finish him immediately. His eyes widen as he roars, releasing everything he has left. The moment marks a sudden change, signaling that the fight is far from over. His senses make it clear that this is not an illusion or a special effect. What he is experiencing is real, and there is no escape from it. The scene cuts to a messy room filled with empty bottles, cans, and leftovers, showing signs of exhaustion and repeated failure over time. He sits alone in front of his computer late at night, staring at the glowing screen in silence, his posture heavy and defeated. The screen displays a clear result: game over. The moment settles in, marking another complete loss and reinforcing the harsh reality he is trapped in. He vents his frustration at the game, calling it worthless after another loss. Despite the anger, he keeps playing, unable to stop himself. His daily routine is revealed from above as he spends weekdays gaming non-stop, ignoring time while others continue working their normal lives. Months earlier, he quit his job and shut himself off from the outside world. He spends his days staring out the window, doing nothing but passing time. Now completely isolated, he lives alone in his room, surviving only on games. His lifestyle has fully turned into that of a gaming addict. Surrounded by empty cups and a glowing keyboard, he continues gaming late into the night. This routine has become normal for him. He reflects on how long he has lived like this, realizing he has been doing the same thing year after year without any real change. Looking at his own reflection, he admits that spending 5 years on a single game has made his life memorable in the worst possible way. The game's login screen fills the monitor once again, reminding him that this title rose to fame 5 years ago, the same time his life stopped moving forward. The game promises that clearing it will grant any wish, but reality proves harsher harsher. Years pass without a single successful clear, and the player count steadily drops to 0. When it first launched, Pangania became infamous for its brutal difficulty. Players flooded forums with complaints, calling it unfair and impossible to finish. Inside the game, bosses appear that feel fundamentally unbeatable. Their overwhelming presence makes players question whether the game was ever meant to be cleared. Even worse, companions turn on each other without warning. Betrayal becomes common, ensuring that survival depends on no one but yourself. On top of everything else, named NPCs actively hunt players who gain a bounty. Once targeted, escape becomes nearly impossible. The harshest rule makes it worse. If a character dies, everything disappears instantly. Death forces a complete restart from scratch. Because of this overwhelming difficulty, the game's brief popularity collapses almost immediately, driving most players away. Left alone with his thoughts, he begins to suspect something is wrong. He wonders if someone is deliberately preventing players from ever clearing the game. The system confirms his character has been deleted due to the death penalty. Along with it, a massive amount of soul points is suddenly awarded. He freezes in confusion as the number appears. The reward is far higher than anything he has ever received before. The system explains that soul points are gained when a character dies. This time, the total reaches 1.6 million because of the rare items the character carried. He quickly realizes the difference. Hundreds of past characters barely gave him anything, but losing one loaded with unique items has changed everything at once. The game explains its SP system. Soul points are awarded based on the value of a dead character and can be carried over when creating a new one. SP can be invested into talents during character creation. The more SP placed into a talent, the slower and more stable its growth becomes over time. He recalls a past character created by investing the maximum 10,000 SP into sword talent, which eventually died while holding the title of Grandmaster of Swordsmanship. With the investment cap set at 10,000 SP per talent, he realizes the truth. Holding 1.6 million SP means he now has enough points to invest heavily across nearly everything. He admits that under normal circumstances, he would focus on magic talents for a safer and more stable run. This time, however, he chooses a different path. He moves the cursor and selects the random option without hesitation. Looking calm, he accepts that he will never clear the game anyway. He decides this will be his first and last attempt to truly enjoy it. With that resolve, he presses the button and confirms the choice, fully committing to whatever outcome the random selection brings. The scene shifts to a quiet meeting. She apologizes as she hands him a drink, creating an awkward pause between them. Confused by her tone, he looks up and asks what she is talking about, clearly not expecting what comes next. She explains that while he is a good person, she cannot stay with someone who has no clear future or direction in life. With a serious expression, she adds that she is at an age where she must think about marriage, making it clear that their relationship cannot continue. He falls silent, unable to respond, as the weight of her words sinks in. His expression stiffens, showing he understands what she is implying. She hesitates briefly, then tightens her lips, clearly conflicted but resolved in what she is about to say. She mentions her friends, explaining that they are all dating or marrying men with stable jobs at big, well-known companies. Looking straight at him, she contrasts that reality with his situation. Without saying it outright, she makes it clear that he does not fit into the future she envisions. He lowers his head and says nothing, the silence stretching as he avoids her gaze. With a tired sigh, she cuts the conversation short. She says that this is enough and announces that she is leaving. Before turning away, she wishes him a good life. He remains seated, his face hidden, unable to respond. She walks out of the cafe alone, leaving him behind at the table, staring down in silence as the breakup fully sinks in. 3 months earlier, after dating for 5 years, he is abruptly dumped. The breakup leaves him sitting alone, stunned by how suddenly everything ends. After she leaves, anger takes over. He quits his dead-end job without thinking, cutting off the last stable part of his life. He shuts himself inside his room and cuts off the outside world. Over time, gaming becomes the only thing he does, turning into a complete complete addiction. Now back at the present, he reaches the character creation screen again and hovers over the random option, ready to escape reality one more time. He steels himself and shuts down his self-pity, calling out his own weakness as he grips the controller more firmly. With no hesitation left, he decides to go through with it. He presses the button, fully committing to the choice. The system immediately responds, rapidly consuming SP to rearrange his stats. Notifications flood the screen as the process accelerates, watching the points disappear at an alarming rate. His eyes widen in shock. He mutters in confusion, realizing something unexpected is happening. A sudden system notice appears, announcing that a hidden piece has been activated. He freezes, confused, as this is something he has never seen before. Another message follows, congratulating him for satisfying a special condition and stating that he has been invited to Pangaea. The wording feels completely unfamiliar. He questions whether the game ever displayed messages like this in the past. Before he can react further, the screen erupts with violent motion. A powerful force pulls him forward as the world distorts around him. His eyes widen in shock, realizing that something far beyond normal gameplay has just begun. A deafening roar echoes as a monstrous presence fills the space. A furious voice curses the world and condemns everything it created. The pressure crashes down on him. He screams in pain as violent energy slams into his body from all directions. Clutching his head, he staggers and tries to understand what is happening. The sensation is overwhelming and completely unfamiliar. Amid the chaos, he realizes the truth. A voice is speaking directly inside his head, signaling that this is no longer just a game. The pressure becomes unbearable. His body is violently thrown back, smashing into the room as the force overwhelms him. He crashes to the floor, gasping and trembling, barely able to move while the pain continues to surge through him. The glow from the monitor floods the dark room as he collapses completely. His strength gives out and his consciousness starts to fade. On the screen, red system messages appear, speaking like a god's declaration and wishing him happiness in Pangaea, confirming that his fate has now been sealed. His consciousness snaps back in a harsh environment. Voices shout at him, cursing and ordering him to get up as pain shoots through his body. He struggles to his knees, confused, while armed men surround him. One of them threatens that if he collapses again, he will be fed to something called the Hydreigon. The name hits him hard. His eyes widen as fear and disbelief surface, trying to understand what kind of place he has been dragged into. Heavy footsteps approach nearby. Massive claws dig into the ground, confirming that the Hydreigon is real and dangerously close. He looks around in panic as the situation becomes clearer. Chains bind his wrists, and rough shouts echo around him while other captives move ahead. His eyes widen when he finally sees it clearly, a massive dragon-like creature looming above. Fear grips him as he struggles to understand where he is. He clenches his fists despite the restraints, his body trembling as the ground shakes with the creature's movements. Before he can react, a guard strikes him from behind and orders him to stop spacing out and return to formation, leaving him no choice but to move forward. The guard yanks him forward and shouts a warning, making it clear that slowing down means death. He collapses to the ground, coughing and groaning, his body pushed past its limits as pain spreads through him. For a brief moment, his vision lifts toward the bright sky above, the contrast making his situation feel even more unreal. Boots march past him without stopping. Forced to endure, he drags himself forward, realizing he has no choice but to survive in this place. As he regains his footing, he looks around and notices the people moving together under guard, their expressions worn and exhausted. Seeing the massive creature again, he realizes the Hydreigon matches the monster he knows from the game Pangaea, confirming this world isn't unfamiliar. His gaze shifts to the rocky desert terrain ahead. The landscape feels strangely recognizable, strengthening his suspicion about where he is. Lowering his voice, he tries to access the system he knows best and calls for the status window, testing whether the game's mechanics still exist here. A blue holographic screen materializes in front of him. The familiar system interface responds, proving that the status window is real. He stares at it in disbelief as detailed stats, talents, and traits appear far more than an ordinary character should have. Scanning the information, he notices abnormal values and warnings tied to the world itself, hinting that something about Pangenia is unstable. Looking at the endless line of captives ahead, realization finally hits him. He hasn't just logged into a game. He has truly entered Pangenia. He freezes in shock, staring at the glowing panel. This isn't a hallucination. The status window is real and fully active. As he checks his stats, confusion hits him. Every base stat is set to 12, far beyond what should be possible for a starting character. Scrolling further, he notices something even more absurd. The panel lists 13 active hidden traits, each one sounding powerful and abnormal. Before he can process it all, movement around him draws attention. The other captives react in surprise, reminding him that whatever he has become, he's standing in the middle of a dangerous situation. Suddenly, tension spreads through the captives. He senses something wrong as murmurs rise and guards begin to panic. The soldiers turn toward the horizon, their faces stiff with fear. Even the experienced ones hesitate, realizing a serious threat is approaching. A massive force appears in the distance, shaking the ground as it advances. Someone shouts that it's the army of the Desert Queen. Chaos erupts as the truth sinks in. The non-aggression pact has been broken. The Desert Queen's forces have launched a direct attack, throwing everyone into imminent danger. The guards shout orders and brace for combat, warning everyone to stay alert or die on the spot. As the battlefield erupts, he stiffens when a powerful woman steps forward, her presence instantly dominating the area and silencing the noise around her. Hearing her title, recognition strikes him. The Snake Princess, an infamous figure he clearly remembers from Pangenia. Before he can think further, a blue system alert appears. The main quest is generated, confirming that the real story has officially begun. He turns toward the glowing screen in confusion as the system updates again, unable to believe what it's displaying. The main quest appears clearly. The objective is simple: survive. The rewards depend on the outcome. As he reads further, his expression freezes. Failure doesn't just mean dying here. Both his in-game body and real body will be lost. Realization hits hard, with arrows raining down and chaos unfolding around him. This isn't a game anymore. His life depends on surviving this battle. Arrows suddenly rain down from above as people start screaming and running in all directions. He tries to move through the chaos, dodging falling arrows while injured people collapse around him. Blood splatters his face as he turns sharply, sensing danger closing in from all sides. His eyes widen in shock, realizing that escaping this battlefield won't be easy and hesitation could mean death. A hidden trait activates, explaining that it reduces exhaustion and lowers the risk of being caught off guard. As enemies rush forward screaming, the explanation continues, stating that it allows faster judgment of the situation. He looks at the bodies and a fallen sword on the ground, realizing the danger is closing in rapidly. He decides that staying still means death and prepares to move immediately if he wants to survive. He starts moving as enemies close in, sprinting across the battlefield without looking back. While running, he twists his body and reaches toward a fallen weapon on the ground. His hand grips the sword firmly, pulling it up in one smooth motion. Energy surges around him as he stands his ground, fully prepared to fight back. An enemy charges in from above, swinging down with full force as he turns to face the attack. He counters instantly, releasing a surge of blue energy that crashes into the attacker mid-air. The blow lands cleanly, sending the enemy flying back while blood spills from the impact. He lands in a low stance with his sword glowing, energy still swirling as the fight continues. A system window appears, announcing the activation of a hidden trait. His eyes sharpen as blue energy gathers tightly around his face. Footsteps rush closer as the enemy closes the distance at full speed. He lifts his head, eyes calm and focused, tracking the incoming threat. The attacker charges in, swinging his weapon downward while shouting in rage. He reacts instantly, shifting his body aside as the heavy strike slams past him. Missing its mark, he tightens his grip on the weapon, holding it steadily despite using it for the first time. As the enemy rushes in, his stance stays firm and his movements remain precise. He swings at the perfect moment, striking with speed and accuracy that surprises everyone. The attacker screams as the blow lands, proving he can wield the weapon like an expert. He looks up sharply, sensing another change as the flow of energy shifts. His expression tightens when he realizes something new is happening. Multiple weapons begin to materialize in the air, forming neatly in front of him. Axes hover in perfect alignment, each one glowing faintly as they prepare to move. The enemy swings again, sparks bursting as the attack cuts through the air. Blue energy traces along his body as his senses sharpen. His eyes widen, clearly tracking the exact path of the enemy's sword. He moves at the last moment, stepping into the opening as the blade passes harmlessly by. The enemy recoils in pain as blood bursts from the impact. Without hesitation, he tightens his grip on the axe and steps forward. He swings down with full force, bringing the weapon straight toward the enemy's head. The strike lands before the opponent can react, cutting him down in a single blow. He stands alone on the battlefield, breathing steadily while holding his weapon low. His gaze sharpens, showing no fear as he prepares for the next wave. The surrounding enemies hesitate, staring at him in shock and calling him a monster. System messages appear, confirming his weapon proficiencies have risen, proving his strength has increased. He steadies his breathing and checks his status, realizing his proficiency has already reached level 6 out of 10. He grips his weapon, understanding that lasting this long was only possible because of his hidden trait. Looking around, he sees hundreds of enemies still surrounding him and knows this strength won't last forever. Standing alone in the battlefield, he curses the quest, realizing survival is still far from guaranteed. A figure seated on the throne asks whether the expedition to the demon world has failed. Another voice confirms the truth, addressing her directly as the Snake Princess. They warn that if it becomes known their city did not participate, the central continent will blame them for the failure. She listens in silence, then decides they must prevent that outcome at all costs. She is ordered to head to the Kaltzman Desert and deal with the aftermath of the expedition. The command is clear: erase all evidence that Feiselmer never sent any troops. This includes eliminating every remaining survivor connected to the failed expedition. In return, she is promised that if she performs well, the curse placed on her will finally be lifted. She acknowledges the order without hesitation, accepting the task she was given. The reminder is clear: failure is not an option, and she must see the mission through. Later, she stands in the desert, calmly surveying the area where the survivors remain. She turns toward a crawling man and coldly asks if everything is finished. The wounded man hesitates and reports that there is still one survivor left. She repeats the information, calmly confirming that a single slave is still alive. The scene shows the battlefield filled with corpses, making it clear how few remain. At a distance, the last survivor is revealed, barely standing while leaning on his sword. The system activates, restoring his health and mana while completely removing his fatigue. A notification appears as his level increases to level 2, and his condition visibly stabilizes. He lowers his head briefly, then stands upright with renewed strength, gripping his weapons firmly. Facing the approaching enemies, he coldly orders them to move out of his way. The survivors notice someone approaching from above, and one of them realizes that the princess has arrived. He looks up at her and calmly acknowledges her presence, recognizing her at once. She stands on the elevated ground, staring down at the battlefield as her name is revealed: Isabella von Dersian. The system displays her information, confirming her identity and level, while stating that her stats, talents, and skills cannot be analyzed due to insufficient understanding. He looks up in shock as the system confirms her level. Level 8 is revealed, and he immediately realizes the gap is overwhelming. He understands that from level 7 onward, the difference in strength becomes absolute, and level 8 fighters are considered among the strongest. Facing her directly, he tightens his grip on his weapons and admits that standing against her like this puts him at a complete disadvantage. The system reiterates her condition, stating she cannot leave the area due to a curse, while her stats remain unreadable, making the situation even more dangerous. He senses something wrong and looks up in confusion as a sudden presence enters his field of view. A woman steps forward calmly, her approach slow and deliberate, while he instinctively steadies himself with his weapons. She faces him head-on and states that his performance was interesting, but her expression shows no hesitation. Her killing intent fully emerges as she declares that he has to die, confirming that the encounter has turned into a direct execution. He remains silent, recalling how he always chose the hardest games and kept playing despite constant criticism and extreme difficulty. The scene shifts to his past, showing him repeatedly clearing impossible challenges, proving that difficulty never stopped him. He admits that his obsession with mastering those games shaped the way he thinks and reacts under pressure. As the present returns, he moves forward toward her without hesitation, implying that he has already found a way to face this situation. She suddenly rushes in with overwhelming speed, closing the distance before he can react. With a calm smile, she asks if he truly wants to lift the Queen's curse. Making her intentions clear, he stands still as her attack reaches him, showing no panic while power gathers around his body. As the clash happens, he smirks slightly, signaling that he has already prepared his response. She charges in with her blade drawn, but suddenly freezes when he calmly steps into her range. Their faces come close as he looks straight at her without fear, making her hesitate. He opens his eyes and answers her question, revealing his confidence instead of backing away. He states that he reads the stars and leads people toward them, leaving her stunned by his words. He clearly introduces himself as the Star Bearer and states that he can help lift the Queen's curse. Her eyes widen in shock as she realizes his words carry real authority. Seeing her reaction, he turns slightly and confirms to himself that his claim worked. The system explains that Star Bearer is an NPC class role, something only players who surpass the maximum level can achieve. He explains that the Star Bearer role only works on NPCs, and to remove the Queen's curse, she needs the Star Bearer's blessing. Since Isabella wants to escape the curse, she lowers her head and listens, her body visibly trembling. He calmly states that the reason she wants freedom from the curse is simple, directly calling her name. The system confirms that Isabella von Dercian, a level 8 character, is someone he himself created. He explains that Isabella was meant to guide players early on, but she became trapped here because of the Queen's curse. From a player's perspective, the curse exists only to keep them within the early starting zone. He recalls that players were originally supposed to travel the world freely, but Isabella was left behind, bound by that role. After listening in silence, she finally looks at him and asks a simple question: his name. He gives his name Randolph, and the system immediately confirms it has been set. She watches him in silence, carefully judging his words and his reaction. Turning away, she decides to spare him for now, stating that his life will be postponed. As she walks off, she warns him that if he is lying, she will kill him without hesitation. She coldly warns that she will tear him apart if he causes trouble, then orders her men to escort him, stating he is now an honored guest who must be handled carefully. As he walks away under guard, the system begins finalizing the results, recognizing his survival as the completion of the main quest. His performance is judged as record-breaking, triggering multiple constellations to react, with his rewards being upgraded due to exceptional results and beginner's luck. He receives several rare rewards in succession, including a broken golden scale, the soul of the Hydragorn, and a named sword. While the constellation of battle acknowledges his effort, he collapses onto the ground, injured and exhausted, realizing that despite everything, he managed to survive. The system confirms his results, announcing his total points and stating that his achievement will be recorded in the Hall of Fame for main quests. Night falls over the city, marking the end of the brutal trial and signaling a brief moment of calm after the chaos. Later, he rests alone in a grand room while reviewing the system screens, silently acknowledging that this ordeal has finally come to an end. He reviews the rewards and realizes how rare they are, noting that the soul of the Hydragon has only dropped once since the game's release. As he checks further, he notices another item and questions what the broken piece of the golden scale actually is. The system explains that the item allows synchronization between reality and Pangenia, with limited time remaining and optional activation. While processing this dangerous ability, a new scene opens before him, signaling that something much bigger is about to begin. 3 women approach and ask if he wants to be washed, standing silently as they wait for his response. He calmly tells them to wash only his feet, realizing they are observing his reaction. The attendants begin washing his feet without speaking, maintaining a respectful and controlled demeanor. He recognizes them as Isabella's chambermaids and decides not to react, knowing any unusual response could raise her suspicion. As the chambermaids continue, he forces himself to stay calm, reminding himself that a star bearer must not show any reaction. He keeps his expression steady and avoids looking directly, trying not to draw attention to himself. One sudden movement makes the maids gasp, breaking the silence for a brief moment. At the same time, a glowing status window appears in front of him, catching his attention and interrupting the situation. He notices a new screen appear and pauses, quietly reacting as he reads the unfamiliar information. The system explains that the boundary between Pangania and reality is weakening, and a breakdown will begin once it crosses a certain threshold. Another window opens, showing the Hall of Fame rankings, with his name placed at the top based on points earned in the survival quest. The system confirms that a new logout feature has been unlocked, while warning that his character will remain vulnerable during logout. He reacts when the term Star Bearer is mentioned, turning toward her as confusion crosses his face. A sudden realization hits him, and he stares ahead in shock, calling the situation impossible. He recalls the players he entered the game with, remembering how they vanished one by one during the process. The thought settles in those players may not have disappeared at all, but were summoned into this world just like him. He realizes he can leave, clenching his fists as he declares that he can finally escape the game. The attendants try to stop him, reminding him of the princess's orders, but he interrupts them without hesitation. He states that if he fails to communicate with the stars in time, he will lose all of his power, making it clear he cannot wait. He tells them to ask the princess herself if she truly wants to stop him, while she stands there in silence, watching his decision. He tells them to inform the princess that he will meet her again after he finishes communicating, then turns to leave. The door closes behind him as the attendants wish him a comfortable time, ending the confrontation. Alone, he looks back and admits that his excuse barely worked. Relieved that he managed to get out, standing by the water, he reflects that he was afraid of being trapped in this place forever. Now finally able to move forward, confident that everything is settled, he decides he's done with the game and prepares to log out. He presses the logout option without hesitation, determined to leave this world behind. As the logout process begins, a system warning appears, telling him to keep his character in a safe place. Another message follows, stating that if his character dies here, he will die in real life as well. The system confirms the process, and the screen displays that the logout has been completed. He opens his eyes in the real world, staring blankly at the room as everything feels unnervingly quiet. Outside the window, the city is already engulfed in flames, smoke rising as explosions echo through the streets. People scream and run for their lives while the city burns, revealing that reality itself has fallen into chaos. Outside, something monstrous moves through the flames, its silhouette barely visible as buildings burn around it. His phone suddenly vibrates, showing an emergency disaster alert as the screen trembles in his hand. He looks up in shock through the window, realizing the danger is right outside. Unable to process what he's seeing, a giant claw smashes into the building, confirming that the nightmare from the game has crossed into reality. The creature's massive fist crashes through the wall, sending debris flying as the room shakes violently. He stumbles backward in panic, barely managing to keep his balance as the impact throws him across the room. Turning his head in shock, he realizes the monsters from Pangania are no longer confined to the game. Outside the window, the destruction continues, confirming that the invasion into the real world has already begun. A group of people stands gathered in a strange open area, all facing a glowing system interface, unsure why they were brought there. Quick flashes reveal brutal battles and supernatural abilities, making it clear that survival here depends on combat power. The focus shifts to a man with glasses as he realizes this is real, not a dream, and panic starts to set in. He finds himself sitting in an unfamiliar chair, confused and trying to understand where he is, marking the start of his ordeal. He looks around and realizes he is back in his own room. Familiar objects surround him, making him question if everything before was just exhaustion after playing too long. Rubbing his face, he tries to convince himself it was impossible. He reasons that getting pulled into a game makes no sense and dismisses it as an overly vivid dream. His gaze shifts to the desk, where he notices something strange sitting beside his keyboard. The sight immediately breaks his calm and raises suspicion. When he picks it up, shock takes over. He can no longer deny it, realizing that what he experienced wasn't a dream and that everything was real. He suddenly remembers the game and rushes to check it, expecting to find answers about what just happened. Instead, the screen shows an error page, confirming the game homepage has completely disappeared without explanation. Confusion turns into panic as he realizes something changed while he wasn't paying attention, and the situation is slipping out of control. Before he can react, a terrifying presence appears, forcing him to cry out for help as the danger reveals itself. Chaos erupts in the streets as a grotesque monster crashes down, sending people flying and filling the area with screams and destruction. Bodies hit the ground and blood spreads as survivors panic, realizing this is not something they can fight. A man desperately radios for help, shouting that unidentified monsters have appeared and immediate backup is needed. Nearby phones begin vibrating non-stop, signaling an emergency alert as the situation spirals completely out of control. Watching the chaos unfold outside, he freezes in shock as monsters rampage through the streets, unable to understand how this is happening. He realizes these creatures look exactly like monsters from the game, making the situation feel even more unreal and terrifying. As he moves, the strange item he picked up earlier slips from his grasp and falls to the ground, drawing his attention. Staring at it, a horrifying thought hits him that the boundary between reality and the game world may have completely collapsed. A system screen suddenly appears, displaying multiple abilities and a destruction progress warning, explaining that as it rises, the boundary between reality and the game weakens. Reading this, he panics and struggles to think, overwhelmed as he wonders what he is supposed to do in this situation. His eyes fall on the strange golden item lying on the floor, its presence standing out as if it holds some kind of answer. He quickly reaches for it and grips it tightly, realizing this item may be his only chance to survive what's coming next. He quickly connects the dots, realizing that if monsters from the game exist in reality, then items from the game might work here as well. Without hesitation, he rushes toward his computer, determined to test his theory before it's too late. As he activates the item, a warm glow spreads through his hands, confirming that something is responding. In a flash of light, powerful game rewards manifest before him, proving that he now has access to weapons and abilities from the game. He stares at the glowing fragment in his hand, confused about how to activate it, realizing it doesn't respond the same way it did inside the game. As information appears, he understands that the fragment can synchronize reality with the game world for a limited time, but ordinary humans still can't fight those monsters directly. Even so, he hesitates only for a moment, knowing he has no other option if he wants to survive what's coming. He activates the fragment, and in an instant, a powerful presence manifests behind him, signaling that something extraordinary has just been unleashed. The system confirms synchronization is complete, activating the fragment and starting its limited time as the city continues to collapse around him. Outside, destruction spreads through the streets, with bodies lying among the ruins as the aftermath of the monster attack becomes painfully clear. A woman runs desperately through the chaos, clutching her child while struggling to escape the danger closing in from all sides. The child asks about her father, and the mother forces herself to stay calm, assuring her that he will come soon even as fear and uncertainty weigh heavily on her words. Amid collapsing debris, the mother is suddenly struck and sent crashing to the ground, barely managing to shield her child. The little girl is thrown away by the impact and lands hard. Confused confused and calling out as dust and rubble surround her. She spots her mother trapped beneath the debris and runs back in panic, screaming for her while the destruction continues. Though badly injured, the mother forces herself to speak calmly, telling her daughter to run away quickly. Even as her own strength fades, a woman rushes in and asks if everything is all right, stopping in shock when she sees the injured mother trapped under the rubble. Bleeding heavily, the mother forces herself to stay conscious and begs the woman to take her child and keep her safe. Overwhelmed but determined, the woman hesitates for only a moment before accepting the responsibility. She promises to protect the child and quickly leads her away, leaving the injured mother behind as the danger continues. The injured mother struggles to lift her head as a massive shadow looms over her, its presence crushing her remaining strength. Pain surges through her body as she realizes the monster has found her, leaving her with no way to escape. Facing the creature, she accepts her fate, understanding that this moment may be the end for her. As the monster moves in to strike, everything goes silent, marking the moment her life is about to be taken. Just as the monster is about to strike, a powerful presence suddenly cuts through the chaos, stopping its attack mid-motion. A man with glowing eyes appears, moving at overwhelming speed as energy surges around him. In a single decisive move, he slashes through the monster, destroying it before it can react. Witnessing this, everyone freezes in shock, realizing that someone capable of fighting these monsters has finally arrived. Clutching the child tightly, the woman realizes she survived, barely escaping death as debris continues to fall around her. She turns back and spots the man who saved them, standing calmly amid the destruction, making her wonder who he really is. Suddenly, another monster lunges from behind, its massive body crashing toward them without warning. Seeing the danger, she screams a warning just in time as the threat closes in again. The sudden impact throws the woman to the ground as the monster crashes past, shaking the entire area. Holding the child close, she looks up in fear, sensing something massive moving behind her. In the distance, an enormous beast reveals itself, its presence overwhelming as multiple heads rise into view. As the man stands calmly before it, the truth becomes clear: the monster facing him is a terrifying dragon with 9 heads. The man calmly orders everyone to stay still as he positions himself between them and the massive dragon. Holding the child tightly, the woman looks up in disbelief, struggling to understand what she's witnessing. As she catches her breath, doubt creeps in, making her wonder if this overwhelming scene could somehow be a dream. Suddenly, the child breaks free and runs toward her injured mother, screaming for her, ignoring the danger around them. As the woman looks around, she notices people fleeing in every direction. Realizing the chaos isn't limited to just one place, her expression stiffens as a terrifying thought hits her, sensing that something far bigger is happening. Scenes of destruction flash by, showing monsters rampaging freely and killing people without resistance. It becomes clear that monsters appeared simultaneously across the entire world, instantly pushing human civilization toward collapse. The monsters were not the only ones to appear, as powerful individuals also emerged amid the chaos. These warriors fought back fearlessly, cutting down monsters with ease and shrugging off attacks that ordinary weapons couldn't stop. Some of them stood before terrified crowds, promising protection and calling on people to unite their strength against the threat. As these scenes spread everywhere, it became clear that the world was rapidly changing into something entirely new. While others panic and waste their fragments, one man watches calmly, mocking their poor decisions as he holds his own piece of the broken golden scale. It is confirmed that reality and Pangea are beginning to merge, and over time, the two worlds may fully become one. In this new age of chaos, everyone is now a competitor, and only those who gather more fragments will rise as the true powers of this era. The system updates the rankings for the first time in 2 years, revealing massive score gaps and an overwhelming top score that sets the standard for survival. At the top of the rankings stands a mysterious name, Randolph, making people wonder if he is the same figure known as Phantom. Because no one knows his real identity, he is also called Ghost, remembered as the first player to form form an NPC expedition and push deeper than anyone else. That expedition ultimately ended in total failure, with his strongest character falling during the mission. Since the strongest character is summoned upon death, it becomes clear that he must have been summoned into Pangenia at the exact moment the expedition collapsed. Although appearance and equipment are reset, certain talents from a player's previous character still carry over. Seeing this, it becomes clear how Randolph achieved such an overwhelming score compared to everyone else. With monsters now appearing in reality, summon players have begun crossing over as well. These players arrive in the real world bearing the exact forms and abilities of their characters from Pangenia. As he reflects on everything so far, the situation finally starts to make sense, with each piece fitting together clearly. He recalls how his previous character nearly reached the game's ending during the Demon Realm expedition. That run failed because of constant interference, hostile NPC mercenaries, and even trusted companions who betrayed them. Now, he questions whether all those disruptive factors were actually other players, summoned into the game just like he was. He realizes that if the boundary between reality and Pangenia has collapsed, logging out is no longer a way to escape. Players who can't reach the ending may target others they see as rivals, making hiding an impossible option. To survive in both worlds, he decides he has no choice but to grow stronger and fast. As he steps forward with that resolve, a woman seated on a throne addresses him, asking if he's finished talking with the stars. She confirms that she has come to keep her promise, calmly acknowledging his arrival. She then adds that she has one condition, drawing his full attention as he asks what it is. Without hesitation, she gives her demand, making it clear what she wants in return. She orders him to take her to the sanctuary, directly calling Isabella by name. He reacts in disbelief when she mentions the sanctuary, questioning her sanity. She calmly explains that there is a star there and makes it clear that what she seeks can be obtained in that place. A system window appears, confirming that a class can be obtained in the sanctuary and the quest will end once it's acquired. Under the moonlit sky, the ruined city stands silent, showing the aftermath of the sudden destruction. A blood-stained foot steps forward, leaving a dark trail on the ground as someone advances without hesitation. Bodies lie scattered across the corridor, the walls and floor soaked, proving a one-sided massacre has already taken place. She wipes the blood from her blade, standing calmly amid the flames, showing she is still in full control of the situation. A few hours earlier, he finishes off the remaining guards in minutes, proving his strength and leaving no room for doubt. He confronts Isabella and demands to be taken to the sanctuary, catching her off guard with his confidence and calm tone. When she questions his sanity, he explains that after surviving the first main quest, the next step is to obtain a class. With a firm look, he reveals that the class he wants can be obtained right there, pointing out that a star exists inside the sanctuary. He asks if there really is a star inside the sanctuary. She confirms that a star exists, but it is hidden and not easily found. He explains that the fourth star was something he discovered while raising his previous character, and that he is likely the only player who knows its exact location. He adds that only by obtaining a star can her curse be lifted through the blessing of stars. She warns him that no one is allowed to enter the Holy Land, and that anyone caught sneaking in will face consequences. She reminds him that time is running out, and this is his last chance to leave the desert. He states that if persuasion fails, he will force his way in. After a brief pause, she finally allows him to enter the sanctuary. He confirms that they have arrived. She states that this place is the holy sanctuary hidden within the desert. A system message appears, confirming entry into the sanctuary and starting the subquest for exploration. It explains that rewards depend on the exploration rate. Multiple warnings appear, stating that the area does not meet the recommended level, is filled with venom and magic, and that low horsepower makes exploration dangerous. Another system notice reveals hidden characteristics, stating the sanctuary is protected by a giant dragon. He admits that without these hidden traits, he would not have entered at all. He explains that this sanctuary was originally a restricted place where level 2 beginners were not allowed to enter. He notes that with Isabella accompanying him, exploring it as a subquest would normally bring huge rewards. He makes it clear that subquests are not his priority right now. He stops and focuses, saying that what matters is right here in front of them. A system message appears, stating that a class can be acquired through Main Quest 2 by obtaining it inside the sanctuary. Another notice adds that compensation varies depending on the class level obtained. He smiles and concludes that getting a class here is the real objective, because once he does, he can finally secure a proper job. The surroundings tremble as dark energy flows through the sanctuary. The air thickens, and something hidden begins to respond. She looks around in silence, sensing the change. Her expression remains calm, but her focus sharpens as the presence grows stronger. The energy continues to swirl behind her, pillars emerging as the space reacts to her awakening. The atmosphere becomes heavy and oppressive. She closes her eyes and forms a faint smile, signaling that the process has begun and that something significant is about to appear. She suddenly realizes something is wrong and stops, questioning the direction they are heading while warning that mistakes can happen. She explains that the bridge ahead is a trap, designed to sweep anyone away if they cross without knowing the mechanism. He steps closer and calmly speaks, admitting he failed to notice the trap, and directly asks her if she is scared. Her eyes widen in shock at his words, realizing his confidence and that she may have misjudged him. She mocks him, saying he looks more scared than he admits, while he calmly denies it and introduces himself as the Snake Princess. He explains that the bridge is likely a trap and claims he has a leg cramp, then casually says he will carry her on his back instead. She explodes in anger, shouting at him and pointing out that he just said his leg was cramped, clearly furious at his recklessness. Ignoring her anger, he states they don't have time to hesitate and insists moving forward is better than staying afraid and delaying. She reacts in shock as he suddenly lifts her onto his back, leaving her momentarily speechless. He says that if it weren't for the cramp in his leg, he would have carried her properly, while she reluctantly agrees to hold on. He tells her to grip tightly, then stomps forward with force, activating the path beneath them. Without hesitation, he dashes ahead across the dangerous terrain, committing fully to crossing the trap in one move. Proper as they rush forward, she panics and shouts that the direction is wrong and there's no way out ahead. Ignoring the warning, he jumps straight into the abyss with her still on his back, committing without hesitation. Mid-fall, his eye reacts as a system message appears, announcing that a hidden characteristic has been triggered. The mutant trait activates, granting him special vision that allows him to see things hidden from normal human sight. While falling, she asks if there's a path he can't normally see, and he calmly confirms that this invisible route is the real way forward. She panics internally, confused about how he can sense a path even when she, the second in command, can't perceive anything. He remarks that he didn't expect her to have acrophobia, then shuts her down when she questions his confidence. Annoyed, she snaps back, accusing him of being too relaxed, while he casually responds that carrying her weight isn't a problem at his level. As they move forward, she compares the feeling to reconnecting with someone familiar, like meeting a friend after a long time. She asks if they've met before, but he stays silent, watching her reaction closely. While ascending the glowing stairs, she says they've never shared the same space before and asks what that actually means. While ascending the glowing stairs, she says they've never shared the same space before and asks what that actually means. She says that even if he claims to know her, he has never actually seen her before. As blue energy surges around them, the surroundings begin to distort and a barrier spreads across the entire area. He explains that this is a domain barrier cast over the whole domain, hiding everything from those who stray off the correct route. He adds that the barrier only reveals itself to those who follow the designated path, confirming they are moving the right way. He recalls that if his memory is correct, the next stage should appear here. The ground splits open, revealing a dark cavity with a red, glowing core forming at its center. The earth begins to shake as something massive starts moving beneath the surface. Multiple stone figures rise one after another, their bodies glowing red as they fully emerge. A massive guardian emerges, its chest glowing red as its core activates. He observes the size and structure of the guardian and identifies it as a high-grade golem, noting that contact at his current level would mean instant death. He casually asks if her leg cramps are gone, while she warns him to stop talking and just watch. The guardian suddenly moves, its heavy heavy steps shaking the ground as it charges straight toward them. The golem raises its massive arm and swings down with overwhelming force. She stands her ground as the attack descends, the Guardian's red core blazing while debris scatters. A close-up shows her calm smile, showing no sign of panic as the strike closes in. Golden restraints suddenly wrap around the golem's arm, stopping its attack mid-swing. A violent explosion erupts as the restrained arm shatters, sending debris flying in every direction. She calmly looks back and states that the fight will be over soon. She launches forward through the falling rubble, targeting the golem as its red core is exposed. The Guardian's body breaks apart under the impact, its glowing core cracking as the final blow lands. He watches calmly as the golem collapses, acknowledging her precise assassination style, fighting despite her low level. The golem's cracked body finally gives way, its core split apart by her final attack. She lands amid the falling debris, confirming that a level 8 enemy truly operates on a different scale. As rubble rains down, he checks the system screen, surprised that the battle ended faster than expected. The system notifies him that he can acquire the Golem Maker class, counting Isabella's kills as his own. He reviews the class details, noting that in Pangenta, Summon Command classes are rare and Golem Maker is considered a high-tier option. Despite its value, he decides it doesn't match the class he's aiming for and selects Reject without hesitation. As the screen fades, he confirms there is someone else in the Sanctuary who can grant him the class he truly wants. The purple miasma thickens as Isabella suddenly stops, sensing something unusual ahead. The land itself reacts, and a massive mountain comes into view, wrapped in ominous energy. A system message appears, stating that the old king, master of the mountain where the nameless star is buried, has been angered by intruders. Looking up at the mountain, he calmly acknowledges it, realizing that the real destination is finally right in front of them. A massive presence descends from above, its shadow covering the entire area as something enormous reveals itself. The overwhelming pressure from the giant dragon presses down on him, and he realizes this creature is likely the sanctuary's keeper. He studies the dragon carefully and notices that despite its terrifying presence, it does not attack first. Turning to his companion, he casually says she didn't come here expecting him to fight a keeper on her behalf. He reassures her that although it looks dangerous, the dragon seems surprisingly calm and even friendly for now. Without warning, a massive shockwave sweeps through the area, throwing her off balance and slamming her into the ground. She struggles to get up as the impact settles, clearly caught off guard by the sudden attack. He turns his head with a confused expression, not expecting things to escalate this way. She snaps her gaze toward him, eyes wide and furious, realizing he's the one who caused it. The massive serpent reveals its true nature, announcing itself as the sanctuary's challenger and demanding proof of worth. He freezes in confusion, realizing the creature has mistaken him for the one challenging the sanctuary. Before he can react, the serpent declares that the true challenger defeated the Watcher and has already stepped forward. He looks stunned as the situation escalates, finally understanding that the real battle has already begun without him. The serpent declares that anyone who fails to prove their worth will die, and the pressure around the battlefield instantly intensifies. He panics and shouts for guidance, insisting he isn't the challenger, while memories surface of clearing this place before without ever defeating this monster. His eyes widen in shock as the truth sinks in, realizing something has changed compared to his previous run. The Guardian is revealed as the Ancient King, Dramath, the massive keeper of the sanctuary, a godlike being whose power grew by absorbing the star's spiritual energy. He recalls that the last time he cleared this sanctuary was when he was raising Wilhelm, back when he himself was a level 10 player and a star transcendent character. At that time, Wilhelm guided them directly to the star, likely because Wilhelm fully met the sanctuary's hidden qualifications. He analyzes the keeper's behavior and realizes the rule is simple: the Guardian attacks anyone weaker than itself, and back then, he was overwhelmingly stronger. Now facing the same threat with far less power, he clenches his fist and wonders what to do next, knowing there has to be another way to survive. She is struck down hard and skids across the ground, barely managing to brace herself as pain shoots through her body. She forces herself to move but struggles, realizing the sanctuary's miasma is interfering with her body body and slowing her reactions. Gritting her teeth, she admits that from the very start, things have been going wrong and her condition keeps worsening. As she lies there catching her breath, doubt creeps in, and she wonders if trusting the Thinker and stepping into this sanctuary was a huge mistake. She urgently calls out for Dramet to stop as the massive pressure surges again across the battlefield. The giant halts mid-movement, its enormous body stirring the air and ground as its attention sharply focuses forward. A close-up of its eye shows clear shock, signaling that something completely unexpected has happened. He steps forward calmly and directly addresses the Keeper, causing Dramet to question how this human knows its true name. He calmly states that he is the Keeper's master, clearly calling out the name Wilhelm without hesitation. From a distance, the massive body of the Sanctuary Keeper coils around the field as silence briefly takes over. Dramet lowers its head, its gaze locked onto him, and declares that the one it serves has returned. The giant suddenly bursts into loud, echoing laughter, its roar shaking the surroundings as it fully acknowledges Wilhelm's return. The giant dismisses him outright, saying he is not prepared and mocks him as someone unworthy to even speak Wilhelm's name. It explains that Wilhelm was a powerful human, a perfect superhuman with nothing lacking, fully worthy of being its master. The giant states that Wilhelm failed during the Demon Realm expedition, and as a result, all of his stars fell. It declares that this means Wilhelm met a flawless and complete death, roaring in fury while rejecting the idea that anyone like him could replace his master. He steps forward and tells Dramet to honor the contract they once made, revealing that he knows about their agreement. Dramet freezes in shock, questioning how he could possibly know about a contract that should not be known to anyone. The giant states that no one should even be aware of its existence, showing clear agitation and disbelief. Without explaining further, he maintains a calm stance, forcing Dramet to confront the fact that this challenger knows more than he should. The contract with Dramet is revealed. The Mountain Keeper must obey the Mountain Master's commands, and the contents of the contract cannot be disclosed to anyone. It states that whoever obtains the star buried in the mountain can learn the Keeper's true name and become the new master. If the contract is broken, the violator will face death. He explains that this setting still exists, meaning the game's rules are active. Since he is using Randolph's body, the contract's curse does not affect him. Dramet looks down at him in disbelief and calls him a microbe, realizing the contract is being exploited in a way he did not expect. Jinwoo calmly responds that if the monster wants answers, it should lead the way and prove itself. The red-eyed presence mocks him, claiming the star shows no mercy and that approaching it alone is enough to burn him away. Unfazed, Jinwoo says they'll find out the truth once they move forward, showing no fear toward the threat. The elite monster ridicules Jinwoo's confidence, questioning what he's relying on as it prepares to test his strength. The serpent stops mocking and agrees to lead them, saying there's no reason to refuse since the star itself will judge them. It still doubts Wilhelm's identity, but decides to deal with him directly because he knows about the contract. The massive serpent turns and begins moving ahead, guiding them toward the star. Wilhelm follows from a distance while the atmosphere around the mountain grows heavier and more oppressive. The scene shifts upward as the surroundings darken, signaling they are nearing the star's domain. The environment becomes quiet and tense, as if something is waiting. The girl looks ahead in shock, staring at what's appearing before them, and quietly asks if this is really it. The girl looks around the dark chamber and asks where the star is, unable to see anything that resembles it. The serpent answers calmly and points forward, saying the object placed on the altar ahead is the star. A skull embedded in a magic formation is revealed, and the serpent confirms without hesitation that this skull itself is the star. Wilhelm stares at it in disbelief and questions it, while the serpent clarifies that the skull is actually Li's face. The serpent explains that Li, one of the twin goddesses of Pangenia, died, and her body was split into 32 pieces scattered across the continent. It states that when a player performs creation, those fragments are used as the foundational cornerstones that form the world's boundary. Wilhelm holds the skull and reacts in shock as he realizes the truth behind what the star actually represents. The serpent concludes that the 32 fragments of Li's body are what people call stars. As Wilhelm approaches the star, intense heat engulfs him, and his companion shouts in concern, asking if he's alright. The serpent mocks him, saying that merely getting close to the star is enough to burn a creature like him to ash. It continues taunting Wilhelm, claiming that despite his confidence, he was never acknowledged by the star. Wilhelm clenches his teeth in frustration as the serpent orders him to burn to death, calling him a mere microbe. Wilhelm recalls that a star only kills a player if they bypass Dramuit using a bug exploit and obtain the star directly, which he did not do. He remembers the information stating that obtaining a star without a class grants a special job, and he realizes this is his current condition. As the skull-shaped star cracks under the intense heat, Wilhelm admits he never tested this method himself and only learned about it by chance. Wilhelm focuses on the real issue, not survival, but whether he can obtain the job he truly wants as the star reacts to him. As the intense light engulfs him, Wilhelm's body begins absorbing the star's power, and his mana starts converting into sacred energy. System notifications appear, confirming new skills and effects as star possession activates and boosts all of his stats. Wilhelm steadies himself while the power settles, realizing the star's influence is fully merging with him rather than rejecting him. The system confirms the result: Wilhelm has successfully obtained the star successor class, marking his complete acknowledgement by the star. She looks at him in shock and asks if he really absorbed the star, unable to hide her disbelief. He turns back calmly, showing no visible backlash, confirming that the process is complete. Calling her by name, he asks what she plans to do once the curse is finally lifted. She explains her goal clearly: she wants to escape the desert and return to her original bloodline, the Dersian family. He tells her he can place a blessing on her so she can leave the desert, but only if she accepts one condition. When she asks what the condition is, he states it clearly: she must serve him for 1 year. He adds that after that year, he will grant her freedom and personally help her find her bloodline. She hesitates, gripping her clothes tightly, realizing the weight of the decision she has to make. He tells her plainly that he is not a king and does not speak lies, standing firm before her. She looks up at him, her expression wavering as she silently processes his words. After a brief pause, she lowers herself, hesitation visible as she makes her choice. She kneels and accepts his terms, declaring that she will follow him. He acknowledges her decision and calls it a wise choice, addressing Isabella calmly. He turns to Dramuit and confirms the hierarchy, stating that the master of the star is now her true master as well. Dramuit hesitates but answers in agreement, clearly shaken yet compliant. With the matter settled, he orders Dramuit to lower his head, asserting his authority as the new master. A system notification appears, calculating class results and showing an unprecedented score with multiple rewards upgraded. A close-up shows a shocked reaction as the impact of the results sinks in. The scene shifts to the sanctum, where it's revealed that Isabella has invaded the place, bringing along a slave she captured. A cold command is issued, ordering that they be brought immediately. The scene shifts to the real world, showing a quiet cafe as players gather to discuss recent events. They question whether Randolph is truly Phantom, the veteran ghost player who disappeared years ago. They conclude that surpassing top players like Gracia is impossible unless someone understands the game completely. Realizing Phantom's return could shake everything, they decide to contact him before others make a move. The girl wonders how Phantom was never found despite years of searching. They realize Phantom wasn't considered a real player before, but now that he is, there must be a way to track him. They note that Phantom will need a huge number of items to rank first in Main Quest 3, making his next move predictable. They decide on fishing, planning to use the secret auction hall to bait Phantom by listing valuable items and tracking the buyer. They explain that inexperienced players often buy cheap auction items and end up getting tracked, robbed, or killed. One of them doubts Phantom would fall for such a trick, saying that if he really is Phantom, he would already know every talisman option. After a pause, they reconsider and admit that Phantom might still take the bait. The girl gets excited, pointing out that if Phantom sees a cheap but tempting item in the auction hall. He might buy it, making it the perfect way to challenge and lure him out. They decide they must meet Phantom and forcefully invite him into their guild, joking about kidnapping as they argue over the plan. While discussing what kind of person Phantom might be in real life, an unexpected update interrupts them. The system announces a ranking update for Main Quest 2. The Hall of Fame refreshes, showing Randolph in first place with 230 points, far above the others. Seeing the score, they are shocked and question what kind of class could possibly give someone that many points. He decides not to use the secret auction hall for a while, noting that it doesn't really matter anymore. A defeated enemy collapses on the ground, badly injured and unable to resist. The man looks down coldly and states that as long as he keeps killing those at the top of the rankings, he can always rise back up. The system announces that the subquest, Sanctuary Exploration, has been successfully completed. After clearing the desert sanctuary, he gains achievements and rewards, noting that the ride out is easier than expected. While escaping, he plans to finish exploration at the same time, aiming to clear 2 objectives at once. Experience accumulates, and he levels up, briefly reacting as the system notification appears. At level 3, his status updates as a star successor, but he realizes leveling is much slower since the more talents he has, the more experience he needs. He notes that although leveling is slow, his overall stats increase more, so he decides not to dwell on it. He reviews the rewards gained from the main quest and realizes they are items far beyond what his current level should allow. 2 extremely rare items stand out, drawing attention as he turns away while Isabella watches in silence. One reward is the Shadow Cloak, which grants invisibility when activated, effectively giving him a free stealth ability. A sudden disturbance shakes the sanctuary as something crashes and spreads shockwaves across the ground. The Guardian senses movement, its red eye opening as it detects unfamiliar presence nearby. Multiple figures rush through the area, their movements leaving behind distorted afterimages. The Guardian reports to its master that intruders have entered the sanctuary, catching him off guard as he reacts in surprise. She identifies the incoming enemies as the Queen's pursuit squad, noting that they stayed inside the sanctuary long enough to draw attention. She asks what his plan is, explaining that while the Queen herself won't come, the squad sent after them will still be large. He observes the situation and admits that even with the Mountain Guardian, handling all of them in a direct fight would be difficult. He questions the need to fight at all, calmly suggesting that confronting the Guardian head-on isn't the right move. She looks worried as the situation escalates, clearly alarmed by what's about to happen inside the sanctuary. She calls out to Dramot, saying they're counting on him as the giant sea serpent rises before them. Dramot orders the Guardian to act, and the massive serpent responds, revealing its overwhelming presence. As chaos erupts and others panic at the monster's appearance, the two quietly run, questioning if it's really fine to leave everything to the Guardian. They run while talking, saying the Queen isn't coming yet, so it should still be manageable. He adds that the full pursuit squad hasn't arrived. This is likely just the advance unit. He explains that if they get stalled until the main force surrounds the sanctuary, escape will be impossible, so leaving fast is the only option. She questions if they're abandoning Dramot, but he clarifies the Mountain Guardian can't leave the sanctuary, meaning only they can escape. He says the only way out is the warp gate at the edge of the desert, and since Isabella's curse has been lifted, using the warp gate won't be a problem. He says the real problem is that the warp gate doesn't activate instantly. They arrive in front of the gate, and it's stated clearly that the gate needs time to activate. She reacts nervously as he explains that once they get past this point, they'll be out of the desert. He confirms it, but adds that they still need to endure until the gate finishes activating. She asks how long it will take, and he answers that the gate needs around half a day. He explains there's nowhere to hide in the desert, and while the pursuit squad will likely track them, delaying them inside the sanctuary gives some time. He says that during this waiting period, he must communicate with the Star and can't stay logged in forever, because he needs to confirm what's happening in reality. She looks straight at him and asks directly if she can trust him. He grips the device and tells her clearly that he will protect her. She watches as he prepares to leave, remaining behind in the sanctuary while trusting his words. A system message appears, warning him to log out only in a safe location, followed by the logout confirmation. He wakes up in the real world, lying on his bed, showing that he has successfully disconnected. He sits up in bed, noting that he still hasn't fully adjusted to the sensation of returning from Randolph's body to his real one. He picks up his phone and checks the news, confirming that there are no disaster alerts or emergency reports. After reviewing the situation, he concludes that monsters have not appeared in reality yet. He reflects that reality and the game world are slowly merging, that monsters will appear sooner or later, and decides he must return periodically to gather more information. His phone rings. He answers, confused, as the caller greets him and asks how he's been. He checks the screen and recognizes the name, realizing it's Kim Seoyeon calling him. The scene shifts to a cafe, where she speaks sharply over the phone, reminding him that she already bought him food and clothes. She confronts him directly, accusing him of acting cheap now, teasing him about claiming to be rich before, and demanding to know what he did wrong. At the cafe counter, he awkwardly suggests talking in person, saying he has nothing more to say right now. She cuts the call, telling him she's meeting a friend today and not to contact her, leaving him shocked as the call ends. Sitting alone, she looks irritated and mutters about him being an annoying jerk. Later, she reflects that although he was pathetic, at least he listened, while he sits alone in silence, thinking he should have held on a little longer. She arrives early and greets him casually, thinking she'd have to wait, while recalling that things might have been different if he had more money. She sits confidently and asks why he called her so urgently, suggesting they take their time and talk it out. He stays distant, telling her to get straight to the point since he needs to leave soon, noting that her vibe feels different now. Watching him act proud and unchanged, she smiles faintly and thinks that some things never really change. She smiles softly and says he always came right away whenever she called, even now, adding that it was something she always liked about him. She admits that after they broke up, she realized how good he was and kept thinking about him with regret. She looks at him closely and asks if he missed her too, waiting for his response as he stays silent. While she talks, he seems distracted, thinking to himself that she called him here but didn't even order him a drink. He stands up and says that if she's done talking, he's leaving, catching her off guard. She reacts angrily, reminding him that she said she missed him and questioning if this is because of what she said when they broke up. He turns back calmly and asks if her new boyfriend knows she's meeting him right now. She freezes as he bluntly tells her that if she's flirting with multiple men, she should have deleted her SNS pictures too, not just changed her profile photo. He turns away and says he's leaving, ignoring her as she rushes after him, asking him to listen. As he walks, he realizes he's unusually calm, noting that in the past he would have panicked, and wonders if his growth in the game is affecting him in reality too. She yells after him, accusing him of stalking and snapping that she was being nice, but he doesn't stop and tells her that's exactly why he warned her to stop. Suddenly, another man grabs him aggressively and mocks him, escalating into a brief scuffle as the man shouts insults and causes a public scene. The attacker snaps, shouting that everyone has always looked down on him and threatens to kill him as he lunges forward. The hero reacts instantly, countering the attack with a sudden strike that shocks the man mid-motion. Before the attacker can recover, the hero grabs his arm and slams him down, completely overpowering him as the man freezes in disbelief. The woman watches in shock, clutching her head as she stares at the hero and asks who he really is. The hero steps forward, gripping his weapon tightly as he faces the attacker head-on. The attacker struggles and shouts for him to let go, but the hero's hand doesn't budge, showing overwhelming control. With a single twist, the hero locks the man's wrist, forcing a scream as the pain becomes unbearable. Staring coldly, the hero realizes this strength isn't imaginary, his real body has clearly changed. After the fight ends, the girl checks if he's okay while the attacker collapses behind them. Shaken but relieved, she thanks him, admitting he saved her and she doesn't know how to repay him. Confused by her reaction, he asks if something is wrong as they face each other. As he looks closer, he realizes she feels familiar and remembers seeing her before, leaving him momentarily distracted by the connection. Panel 1. He tells the girl she only reminds him of someone he knows. Lowering his guard for a moment, the enraged attacker suddenly charges from behind, screaming and raising his arm to strike. Reacting instantly, he pivots and delivers a powerful kick that sends the attacker flying. The blow lands cleanly, stopping the attack mid-motion and ending the threat in a single move. His kick slams the attacker head first into the ground, ending the fight instantly. The girl stares in shock, unable to process what she just witnessed. He lands smoothly and regains his balance, calmly turning away from the fallen man. From above, the attacker is shown lying motionless on the pavement, completely subdued. The police ask him to come to the station, treating him as involved in the incident. The girl explains she filed the stalking report and says he only helped, but the officers insist there was still an assault. He questions their logic, pointing out the attacker pulled a knife, while clearly growing impatient. When the officer says they're just following protocol, the girl asks who will take responsibility if he gets dragged into trouble as a witness. The girl introduces herself as Kim Hana, a reporter from CK Broadcasting, and questions why an innocent person is being bothered instead of the actual victim. She hints at reporting the incident publicly, making the officers realize the situation could escalate. The police recognize her as the reporter who appeared on YouTube and TV before, confirming her identity and influence. Under pressure, the officer backs down and allows the reporter to go directly with the complainant, ending the confrontation. He thanks Kim Hana for helping earlier, and she casually tells him not to worry about it. Kim Hana hands him her card, explaining that she covers cases related to Dimension Warriors, which immediately catches his attention. She briefly recalls the day of the Dimension War, when monsters invaded and mysterious people appeared to defeat them, later being labeled as Dimension Warriors. He wonders if those Dimension Warriors are the same as players, noting how the public accepts an interdimensional attack more easily than the idea of reality turning into a game. Kim Hana checks if he's hurt and reassures him that it's fine, saying she already has his card. Another woman rushes in, worried about him, and clings to his arm, making the situation awkward as Kim Hana asks if she's his girlfriend. He quickly denies it and explains that he doesn't have a business card, creating an uncomfortable pause between them. Kim Hana then asks for his phone number instead, telling him to hand over his phone, while the other woman reacts in shock. Kim Hana checks his phone, repeats his name, and casually says it sounds nice. She invites him out the next day, suggesting coffee or dinner and saying she'll treat him. He agrees without hesitation. As Kim Hana leaves after setting the plan, the other woman stands frozen, staring in disbelief. Her expression twists with jealousy and rage as she repeats his name, clearly shaken by what just happened. Kim Hana walks away while checking her phone, moving through the street without stopping. She answers a call and greets the person on the other end in a calm tone. The caller introduces himself as Kim-won from the station and tells her not to use nicknames, explaining that the chief is away. She's informed that the chief left her a task, and Kim Hana pauses, reacting with brief confusion at the sudden assignment. While walking, Kim Hana is told that someone named Gracia wants to interview her, which immediately catches her attention. She recalls Gracia as the superhero who saved America and questions why someone that famous would want to meet her. She's informed that Gracia specifically requested a face-to-face meeting in Korea, making the situation feel even more serious. Images of past battles and blood-stained scenes flash through her mind, hinting that this meeting may be tied to something far bigger and more dangerous than a simple interview. In the dark aftermath of a brutal fight, bodies lie scattered as the battlefield falls silent. A blood-soaked woman steps forward calmly, holding her blade without hesitation, showing complete control of the situation. Her presence alone terrifies the survivors, making it clear she is far stronger than anyone there. The men kneel and relay a message from their queen, demanding the Snake Princess return and surrender the slave, promising everything will be forgiven if she complies. The crowd screams for blood, shouting for the traitor to be killed as weapons are raised. The Snake Princess moves without hesitation, cutting down those who rush at her as if their attacks are meaningless. She calmly stands between the fallen enemies and the injured man behind her, making her stance clear. As her power surges, a massive blue energy erupts around her, silencing everyone and showing that resistance is pointless. A massive warp activates, announcing that the departure point is open as time runs out. The Snake Princess reacts instantly, sensing the shift and turning toward the source. She grabs the man and pulls him forward, praising Isabella for holding on until the last moment. As they prepare to leave, he calmly confirms that he has finished communicating with the star. The crowd demands the traitor's execution, shouting for immediate action. He raises his hand as golden light gathers, stating that he will keep his promise because she protected him first. A massive surge of star energy erupts from his fist, blasting forward and overwhelming everyone in its path. He activates a star-exclusive skill, Star Scratch, consuming all remaining star force for a limited duration. The golden star energy explodes outward, engulfing the attackers as they scream under the overwhelming force. He declares this moment as liberation, releasing the full might of his power without holding back. Isabella watches in shock, realizing this is the true power of a Starseer. He turns to Isabella and calmly tells her that if she wishes to return even now, he won't stop her. She firmly refuses to turn back, her expression steady despite the danger ahead. A faint smile forms as her resolve becomes clear. She declares that she will go with him, stepping toward the swirling warp without hesitation. The system confirms her curse is nullified, selects the Central Continent Arcana as the destination, and begins the warp. They arrive in the Golden City Arcana, greeted by towering buildings and a bustling crowd. He observes the surroundings and notes how lavish the city is, realizing everything here revolves around money. He concludes they need to secure enough gold first just to handle basic living expenses. She confidently reveals a bag of gold, assuring him there's no need to worry since she already brought plenty. She checks the prices and says the gold they have is only enough for food and a place to sleep for one night. He reacts in disbelief, recalling that the same amount of gold could buy far more in the Kaltzman Desert. He realizes how expensive the Golden City is and understands that prices here are completely different. Seeing the cost, she asks what their next move should be now. He tells her to stop worrying because there's plenty of money around in this city. He points ahead and reveals a massive casino, implying that's where the money is. She freezes in confusion, realizing what he's suggesting. He confidently stands in front of the casino, clearly planning to earn their money through gambling. He calmly tells her not to worry, wearing a confident smile. At the same moment, a system message appears. In Pangenia, every major city rules itself, and this city follows only one law. Here, money decides everything, and all of the city's wealth flows to a single place. That place is revealed to be the Hudson Casino, shining brightly as people gather outside. Inside, a stern man steps forward and formally apologizes, setting a tense tone for what's about to happen. At the casino entrance, the guard announces that anyone without a 10,000 gold deposit is not allowed to enter. The girl panics and explains they only have 100 gold left after washing up and buying clothes, since their original money was already insufficient. The line grows irritated as guests complain, and the guard coldly tells them to step aside for disturbing others. Calmly stepping forward, the man says they don't have the deposit and instead offers an item as collateral, catching the guard's attention. The man calmly hands over a glowing crystal, saying it should be enough as collateral. The guard freezes in shock the moment he sees the item, realizing its true value. Their attitude instantly changes as they bow and announce they will escort them to the VIP room. As they walk inside, the girl asks what he handed over, and he casually explains it was the Fairy Queen's tear, a powerful talisman. The man explains that the item he handed over is a reward from the sanctuary and is worth at least 1,000,000 gold. He adds that they only need to earn enough to repay the deposit, nothing more. Inside the casino, he calmly watches as the roulette wheel starts spinning. winning. The ball bounces across the numbers, signaling the start of their gamble to quickly recover the deposit. The roulette ball lands again, drawing attention as another winning result appears. People around the table panic and whisper, shocked that he keeps winning non-stop after starting with only a small amount of gold. Stacks of chips pile up as his winnings cross 1.4 million gold, leaving the casino staff and players stunned. He stays calm, knowing this outcome is natural with Golden Grace active, a trait that shines brightest when money is on the line. After cashing out, they celebrate their sudden wealth, while he calmly states that the money belongs to him. The casino allows him to keep all his winnings, but immediately bans him from entering Hudson Casino again. The staff explains that people copying his bets are draining chips non-stop, creating serious problems inside the casino. As the situation escalates, the casino officials grow tense, realizing they can't control the chaos he caused. Casino staff firmly asks them to leave immediately, making it clear they're no longer welcome. She glares back in silence, her expression turning sharp as she senses hostility from the guards. He calmly agrees to leave, but casually adds that he wants to speak with the casino owner first. The staff rejects the request outright and orders them to leave quietly, shutting down any chance of negotiation. He calmly warns the staff not to misunderstand, making it clear he isn't threatening or asking for favors. He confidently states that the casino owner will want to meet him and tells them to pass the message along. Inside, the owner activates a skill to analyze the item placed before him, focusing all his attention on it. After confirming the item is genuine, the owner is visibly shaken, realizing its value and questioning who the man really is. The item is revealed as the Fairy Queen's Tear, an artifact carried only by the Fairy Queen's knights and almost never seen on the market. The owner realizes how impossible it is to obtain one, noting that even defeating a knight would require multiple high-level powerhouses. A subordinate reports that the man who left the talisman as collateral wants to meet Lord Hudson in person. Hearing this, Lord Hudson reacts with shock, instantly recognizing that the visitor is no ordinary gambler. Lord Hudson orders the guards to bring the visitor in, choosing to meet him calmly over tea. The man enters and sits confidently, with the woman standing behind him, both remaining composed under scrutiny. Lord Hudson silently observes him, questioning whether this calm man is truly the one who left the Fairy Queen's Tear. Despite the man's ordinary appearance, Hudson senses something off, realizing that his presence doesn't match the power required to possess such an artifact. The woman mentions that he was the one who wanted this meeting and calmly asks for clarification, while the atmosphere stays tense but controlled. He downplays it, explaining that he only wanted to meet her and had someone pass the message along. He suddenly mentions the talisman he left behind, catching her off guard and confirming she needed it. Keeping his composure, he reveals his real goal was to arrange this meeting so he could buy back the talisman. The man calmly states that he is willing to sell the talisman if the price is right, keeping his attitude relaxed and businesslike. He proposes a price of 2 million gold, calling it a generous offer as he watches their reaction closely. The woman reacts instantly, shocked that he would ask for such an amount for a single talisman, while he remains silent. Without hesitation, he raises the stakes even higher, declaring the price as 20 million gold, stunning everyone in the room. The man points out that with 20 million gold, one could buy a mansion in Central Arcana, arguing that the talisman is ultimately just equipment used for refinement. He admits he personally does not value it that highly, saying he would not even pay such an amount for a collector's item kept purely for fun. While calmly tapping the table, he adds that the price would only make sense if it were a rare collector's piece, implying this talisman does not meet that standard. The other man counters confidently, revealing that the Fairy Queen's Tear is not an ordinary talisman, but something essential for gaining entry into the city council. He falls silent for a moment, his expression tightening as he processes the implications of what was just revealed. The explanation continues, making it clear that without the Fairy Queen's highest tier. Entering the city council is nearly impossible due to strict requirements that cannot be bypassed by personal power alone. It is further revealed that the city council rarely accepts outsiders, and recognition by the academy president is a mandatory condition for entry. As the weight of the name settles in, his eyes sharpen, and the identity of the person involved is finally revealed. Serengeti. The woman is revealed as the only daughter of Marquis Weiser from the Beylank Kingdom, a figure with both noble blood and political weight. Known as the Snow White Knight, she once commanded 500 knights and joined the Demon Realm Grand Expedition alongside him. During that expedition, she sacrificed both of her legs to save him, earning the title of his right hand through her actions. Looking back, he admits he once saw her sacrifice as just another event, back when Pangea meant nothing more to him than a game. After Wilhelm's death and his arrival in this world, the weight of past losses begins to sink in, forcing him to reflect on everything he experienced. As his perspective shifts, he realizes that the NPCs he once knew may have been real players, changing how he views the past events. Serengeti's words resurface in his mind, especially her request to leave the expedition and live freely, giving new meaning to her actions. He then receives Serengeti's necklace, discovering it holds a cherished photo of her and her fiancé, confirming the depth of her humanity. He questions whether the fiancé was always part of her backstory, recalling that in the character settings he knew, no such detail ever existed. It becomes clear that the idea of a fiancé was never originally part of her character, contradicting everything he remembered. The explanation points to an external influence, someone who altered an NPC using preset data, allowing new settings to be accepted naturally. Shocked, the man admits he never told anyone this information and demands to know how the other person could possibly know about it. Hudson observes the man carefully, realizing he likely entered this world long before him and deciding to extract as much information as possible. The man calmly says he didn't know things normally, claiming he simply heard the truth directly, hinting at a different source of knowledge. He reveals that the star told him everything, shocking Hudson, who questions whether the man is claiming to be a stargazer. The man says he won't force Hudson to believe him, but offers help to achieve Hudson's goals, without asking for money if Hudson accepts one simple condition. Hudson reacts cautiously when the man mentions a condition, sensing there is a deeper cost behind the offer. The man explains the rule clearly. Hudson must tell the star the full story of his life, and every word must be sincere, because the star favors only the truthful. Hudson is caught off guard, questioning whether revealing his own life story is what the man truly wants. The man warns that exposing personal information is dangerous and easily misunderstood, but reassures Hudson that a stargazer is rare, and this is the only way to earn the star's judgment and his help. He explains that hunters are NPCs who specialize in killing players, labeling them as sinners and executing them the moment they are exposed. Revealing one's identity in Pangea is essentially suicide, which is why most players hide who they are and why distinguishing players is so difficult. He admits he has no intention of revealing his own identity, knowing that countless players have already died to hunters who get close without warning. Even so, he believes Hudson will accept his offer, which is why he came personally, convinced Hudson is not just an ordinary NPC. He agrees to tell his life story, but says it must begin with Serengeti, since nearly everything he wants to achieve is connected to him. He describes Serengeti as a brave knight who joined the Demon Realm expedition led by the 8 heroes. Hudson reacts with surprise, questioning the claim because the expedition is commonly believed to have been led by Wilhelm. He calmly corrects him, stating that while Wilhelm was the most famous, the expedition was actually carried out by all 8 heroes together. He explains that the Demon Realm expedition ultimately failed due to internal conflict among the 8 heroes. Hudson questions this, pointing out that the 8 heroes are widely known and recorded figures. He agrees and begins identifying them, stating that one of the 8 was the strongest after Wilhelm Gracia. The scene cuts to a modern news report showing a man riding a monster during a massive disaster, hinting that one of those legendary heroes may still be active in the present world. Gracia is informed that the meeting with the Korean journalist Kim Hana has been arranged as requested. His aide asks why he insists on going to Korea personally and suggests bringing the journalist to him instead, mentioning the government wants him to remain in the US for safety. Gracia refuses, stating there is something he must confirm with his own eyes. As he recalls the footage of a man riding a monster, Gracia hints that this individual may be the key reason behind his decision to go himself. He begins by saying Serengeti was a brave knight who joined the Demon World expedition led by the 8 heroes, which immediately shocks the listener. The man interrupts, insisting that Wilhelm was the one who led the expedition, questioning the mention of 8 leaders. He calmly clarifies that while Wilhelm was the most famous, the expedition was actually carried out by all 8 heroes together, and internal conflict among them caused its failure. Hearing this unexpected explanation, the listener is left confused and unsettled, doubting the story while sensing that something important is being revealed. He sits quietly with his food, looking exhausted, clearly distracted rather than uncomfortable with the meal. When asked if the food doesn't suit his taste, he explains that something happened the day before and he barely slept. It's revealed that he stayed up all night talking and rambling, but in return, he managed to gather valuable information about the so-called 8 heroes. Despite being treated to an expensive meal, he feels uneasy and questions whether it's really okay for him to eat there for free. He notices a woman sitting behind them and points out that she looks like the same person who was with him before, mentioning that she keeps glancing in their direction. The woman stands with her arms crossed, clearly watching them closely, creating an awkward and tense atmosphere. He realizes that the man sitting with her looks familiar and matches someone who appeared on Kim Seoyeon's social media. He coldly questions whether Seoyeon's new boyfriend knows she's meeting him and adds that if she's flirting with multiple men, she should delete more than just her profile photo. The woman watching them grows visibly tense, trying to recall the man's name while clearly shaken by seeing him again. The woman at the table quietly suggests changing seats if the situation feels uncomfortable, but the man remains silent. He calmly says there's no need to worry about her and casually states that they don't have any kind of relationship. As he takes another bite of his food, he suddenly calls out a name, Park Hyun-myung, catching the other person off guard. The blue-haired man storms over, accusing him of following Seoyeon and confronting him aggressively. He continues shouting, saying that even after the breakup, the man kept bothering her and is now shamelessly stalking her. From above, the scene shows the man calmly seated at the table as the accuser points at him, loudly calling him out in front of everyone. Memories surface of Seoyeon crying and being dragged out to a cafe in the past, while the man remains silent, clearly confused by the accusations. The blue-haired man grabs him by the collar and threatens that if he follows Seoyeon again, he will kill him, openly insulting him. The man stays calm and finally understands the situation, while Seoyeon watches with a cold expression from behind. A waitress steps in angrily, questioning the disturbance and asking what kind of scene they are creating in the restaurant. The man shuts it down by saying he made the reservation himself and is paying for the meal. He bluntly offers money to silence the blue-haired man and warns him not to interfere or speak recklessly again. The man mocks him by asking whether 1 million won is not enough and casually throws bundles of cash at his face. He coldly tells the blue-haired man to take the money and disappear, openly treating him like worthless trash. The cash flies everywhere as the blue-haired man is forced back, shocked and humiliated in front of everyone. The woman snaps in anger, calling him a crazy bastard as the situation completely spirals out of control. The blue-haired man snaps back, saying she hit him first, barely holding back his anger as the tension explodes. The girl raises her hand without hesitation, telling him to grit his teeth as she swings with full force. Her eyes sharpen in an instant, completely focused, as she commits to the strike without mercy. The blow sends him flying backward, shocking everyone nearby as the situation turns violent in a single moment. moment. The glasses-wearing man steps in coldly, telling the blue-haired man to stop and pointing out that he doesn't look innocent either. Fury explodes on the blue-haired man's face as he shouts back, completely losing control. His expression twists in shock as a sudden force grabs his head mid-rage. In one decisive move, he's slammed straight into the ground, ending the outburst instantly as the warning is enforced. The blue-haired man panics as he realizes the grip on him is unnaturally strong, unable to break free. Sioyan snaps at him, calling his behavior embarrassing and demanding that he stop causing a scene. The glasses-wearing man presses his hand down on the blue-haired man's head, calmly suggesting they take the conversation outside. He coldly states that the fight was started by him, questioning why he's exhausting everyone, while the blue-haired man seethes in humiliation. The glasses-wearing man tightens his grip, calmly warning that the blue-haired man picked the wrong person to provoke. A strange glow erupts from his hand, releasing a sharp burst of light that shocks everyone nearby. The blue-haired man is slammed down as the light overwhelms him, completely crushing his resistance. Staring in disbelief, he realizes this isn't normal strength at all, but something far beyond human limits. The onlookers freeze in shock as they sense something abnormal happening, unable to understand what they're witnessing. The glasses-wearing man releases overwhelming pressure, his presence completely changing as power surges around him. The blue-haired man panics when a blinding vertical beam of energy crashes down, cutting off any chance to resist. He's sent flying and smashed into the ground, finally realizing he provoked someone far beyond his level. The blue-haired man lies stunned on the ground, unable to understand how he was defeated so easily. He recalls seeing the glasses-wearing man clearly transform, realizing he completely misjudged his opponent. The glasses-wearing man calmly restrains him without showing hostility, proving full control over the situation. A system notification appears as the blue-haired man's hidden trait activates, confirming he underestimated someone far stronger than himself. The Pangea level system is explained, showing that leveling from 1 to 10 requires increasing experience gaps at each stage. Players with more talents gain greater overall strength, but their leveling speed becomes much slower due to higher experience requirements. Young Jinwoo belongs to the group with fewer talents, placing him behind others in visible level progression. The reason for his low level is revealed: he has never fought even once and has only been running to survive since syncing with Pangea until now. After surviving the main quest by pure luck, Jinwoo clears it in a few strikes and obtains the Spearman class, which is considered a fairly high-tier class. Because he placed among the top ranks, he receives the reward to log out safely and never returns to Pangea afterward. Jinwoo reflects that not everyone could have survived the same start he had, especially with the heart of the iron-blooded monarch, and adapting to it was never easy. As people begin staring after the incident, Jinwoo decides to leave, admitting his mood is ruined and ending the encounter for now. Hyunmyoung is warned to never cling to Sioyan again, while it's made clear he survived only because of her. The other side realizes Jinwoo is openly revealing himself as a player. They mock Jinwoo for wasting the remaining time on the golden scale, assuming he won't last long if he keeps acting recklessly. Sioyan rushes to Jinwoo after the fight, asking if he's okay. Jinwoo calmly responds that he's fine, ending the confrontation without escalating further. Although Sioyan suggests reporting them to the police, Jinwoo stops her, admitting they threw the first punch and choosing to let the incident go. Jinwoo downplays everything and tells Sioyan it's not a big deal, suggesting they just finish their meal calmly. Suddenly, the surroundings begin to shake violently. People panic as the tremor spreads, and some mistake it for an earthquake. Sioyan reacts in shock while Jinwoo stays focused. He senses something is wrong and realizes this isn't a normal tremor. Cracks spread across the ground and walls, confirming Jinwoo's suspicion that something dangerous is about to emerge. The tremors intensify as massive shapes break through the floor. Someone realizes the corrosion has started again, and panic spreads when monsters appear. Sioyan panics and urges Jinwoo to run, but Jinwoo quickly covers her mouth and tells her to wait, stopping her from drawing attention. Other people nearby start fleeing in chaos as the creatures move through the area, smashing floors and walls without slowing down. Jinwoo carefully observes the monsters and notices something strange. They are moving past humans instead of attacking them directly. Jinwoo realizes the monsters are scavenger-type creatures that only feed on nearby corpses and usually do not appear unless someone attacks first. Suddenly, one of the creatures charges forward, rushing straight through the area and closing in fast. Seoyeon screams for Jinwoo to do something as another person is grabbed and dragged toward the monster's open mouth. Seeing the situation escalate, Jinwoo finally steps forward and releases his power, preparing to intervene before anyone else is killed. As the enemy lunges forward, Jinwoo yells for him to stop. Realizing the situation is spiraling out of control, ignoring the warning, the attacker charges in and strikes with full force, unleashing a powerful blow infused with energy. The impact lands cleanly, and the attacker is shocked to see blood spray out as his opponent collapses instantly. Staring at his own trembling leg, he realizes the truth. Jinwoo took him down in a single hit, and he is far stronger than expected. The enraged warrior lashes out wildly, declaring he will kill everyone as destructive energy spreads across the area. Jinwoo calmly assesses the situation and orders everyone to run, confirming his opponent truly is a dimension warrior. Watching the chaos, Jinwoo realizes his fear was pointless. The enemies are weaker than he expected. He turns to Hana and tells her to get as far away as possible, preparing to handle the threat himself. Jinwoo orders Hana to run as far away as possible, keeping her clear of the fight and the raging warrior. A thick red fog suddenly spreads across the area, swallowing the battlefield and confusing everyone. The enemy panics as his vision is completely blocked, unable to see anything through the fog. From within the crimson haze, a dark silhouette moves silently, signaling Jinwoo's counterattack is about to begin. Inside the thick red fog, Jinwoo senses something strange as an unfamiliar presence reveals itself. A single red eye opens in the darkness, locking onto Jinwoo and sending a chilling pressure through the air. The presence questions who dared to kill its children, its killing intent spreading through the fog. The system confirms the threat as an elite monster appears, marking the start of a far more dangerous battle. A system warning appears, stating the raid requires 20 level 6 members. The air suddenly feels heavy, signaling unexpected danger. A sinister presence reveals itself. The figure shows killing intent, clearly planning to wipe out everyone. Dark energy erupts and spreads rapidly. The figure stands still, completely in control of the overwhelming power. A hunter collapses in panic, coughing and shaken. He realizes the situation has turned deadly in an instant. Thick fog fills the area, blocking vision completely. A hidden presence watches from within the darkness. A hunter looks around in confusion, gripping his weapon as lightning sparks around it, unsure of what is approaching. A red eye opens in the dark, releasing clear killing intent. The command to eliminate the target becomes unmistakable. A grotesque monster reveals itself, its mouth wide open. The system activates a hallucination status effect, confirming the danger is real and immediate. The hunter suddenly screams as a violent force hits him. He panics, unable to understand what is happening to his body. Dark blood splashes through the air, spreading across the ground as the attack continues without pause. The hunter is thrown away like a rag doll, crashing hard and lying helpless on the ground. A figure with glowing red eyes stands calmly, covered in blood. The hunter can only groan in pain, realizing he is completely overpowered. A calm voice echoes through the chaos, stating he did not want to interfere, but the line has already been crossed. A man steps forward confidently with his sword raised, calling the hidden creature to reveal itself. The monster reacts, its massive body shifting as its mouth opens wide, sensing a new threat standing before it. Dark laughter spreads through the space as the creature moves, while the swordsman advances without hesitation, ready to confront it head-on. The monster lowers its gaze and notices a human nearby, showing interest as it judges the prey in front of it. A system message identifies the creature as a red monster. It slowly advances, confident and unafraid. The swordsman remains calm, staring straight ahead without reacting to the monster's pressure. From behind, a woman suddenly suddenly shouts his name in panic, desperately searching for him as the danger closes in. The woman keeps calling his name, but the thick red fog swallows her voice, leaving her standing alone and confused. Suddenly, a violent impact erupts nearby. The swordsman moves at high speed, cutting through the space in a single motion. In mid-attack, he realizes the fog blocked the monster's vision, giving him just enough time to activate his transformation. Even after transforming, he stays cautious, knowing this enemy is still dangerous and not something he can defeat carelessly. He narrowly avoids a fatal strike, realizing that without understanding the attack patterns, he would have died instantly. The monster attacks again with overwhelming strength, but every move is read and avoided at the last moment. The creature grows confused, sensing that his opponent's physical abilities are far beyond normal and clearly exceptional. As the fighter charges forward, the monster realizes he is dodging, as if he already knows every attack in advance. He moves forward with sharp focus, realizing that hesitation will only get him killed. The monster launches another attack, but it fails completely, unable to land a clean hit. Using his knowledge of the attack patterns, he leaps through the air, perfectly avoiding the strike. He clenches his teeth, already predicting the next dodge pattern, preparing to counter the monster's move. The monster unleashes a brutal attack, spraying blood across the area with overwhelming force. He reacts instantly, twisting his body to avoid the splatter before it can touch him. He recalls that any contact with the blood would trigger a dangerous status ailment. The attack crashes into the ground behind him, exploding uselessly as he escapes unharmed. He is forced back by a heavy impact, gritting his teeth as rubble and shockwaves burst around him. Regaining balance, he steadies his breathing, eyes sharp and focused despite the pressure closing in. The monster restrains itself with its own massive body, surprised that its attack was dodged so cleanly and acknowledging his evasion ability. Even while praising him, the monster remains confident, making it clear the battle is far from over and the real danger is still ahead. The monster mocks him, believing that attacks which cannot land are meaningless. He stays calm, steadying his breath and reassuring himself despite the pressure. He declares his intent to finish the fight, activating a talisman as power gathers in his hand. A system warning appears about equipment limits, but another effect reduces the requirement, allowing him to equip the item and prepare his next move. System notifications activate as powerful gear equips one after another, covering his body in high-grade armor and a helmet. Additional set options unlock, and special effects activate, enhancing his speed and overall combat ability. Now fully equipped, he stands firm, acknowledging that buying these items earlier was the right decision. He apologizes inwardly for using a rare talisman, but accepts it was necessary, preparing himself to end the fight at full strength. He steels his resolve, reminding himself that he will keep his promise no matter what happens. Activating the swiftness effect, his body blurs as he bursts forward at extreme speed. He rockets through the air like a flash of light, closing the distance in an instant. His foot slams into the ground with crushing force, cracking the floor as he prepares to launch his decisive attack. He launches himself straight upward, his body cutting through the air at terrifying speed. His eyes lock onto the target, focus sharpening as all his power gathers into a single strike. The sudden movement catches the monster off guard, its eyes widening in shock as he closes in. The monster roars in rage, finally realizing it has lost control of the fight as the decisive clash begins. He closes in at full speed, twisting his body midair to line up a clean strike. His attack lands directly on the monster, cutting deep before it can react. Without stopping, he follows up with another blow, driving the pressure forward and refusing to give space. His eyes stay locked and steady, pushing the assault non-stop as the monster is forced completely on the defensive. The monster swings back with force, trying to stop the assault, but the attack only barely connects. A heavy impact erupts as the blow lands, sending shockwaves through the air. The monster clicks its tongue in frustration, realizing its counter did not work as intended. Without giving time to recover, he pushes forward again, continuing the attack at full speed. A system message activates a powerful set option as energy surges violently around him. His body moves in a sharp, controlled arc, releasing a force far stronger than before. The monster realizes he still has hidden techniques left, sensing the sudden change in pressure. Enraged and cornered, the monster lashes out in fury, but the balance of the fight has already shifted. He recognizes the monster's movement and realizes it is preparing its final attack pattern. Massive waves of power spiral through the air, surrounding him from every direction with no clear escape. The monster charges forward, confident that this attack cannot be avoided. Gritting his teeth, he braces himself, deciding to endure the assault head-on to survive the final exchange. The monster's fog swirls violently, tightening into a deadly vortex meant to trap and crush him. At the same moment, a system effect activates. Wind energy erupts around him, merging with his movement. A powerful gale is triggered, ripping through the battlefield and blowing the poisonous fog apart. The monster's eye widens in shock as it realizes the fog has been completely countered and the situation has turned against it. He quickly analyzes the monster's abilities, realizing it has 4 skill patterns: dodging, blood splatter, needle attacks, and poisonous fog. After using all of its patterns, the monster briefly falls into a confused state and becomes unable to act. He knows this confusion lasts only a very short moment, before the cycle restarts even stronger than before. Seeing the opening, he charges forward. Understanding this brief window is his only chance to win. The monster finally realizes the danger and tries to react, panic flashing across its face. A pillar of light drops as the opening appears. The monster is frozen in place, unable to move. He grips his sword tightly and brings it down with full force, aiming straight through the target. With cold certainty, he reminds the monster of his warning as the decisive strike lands, ending the fight. Investigation yields no CCTV leads or witnesses. Xian Zhang finds the lack of evidence unnervingly professional. He refuses to re-interview Yong Jinwoo due to his broken mental state. Trauma from losing both arms has rendered the witness completely unresponsive. Jinwoo remains paralyzed by trauma, leaving the investigators with no useful information. The team suspects Kim Hana may be hiding the truth and considers intercepting her at the broadcasting station. Xian Zhang warns that Kim Hana is backed by Gracia, a revelation currently causing an uproar among Korean players. Public tension rises as a mysterious, high-profile individual arrives to conduct a private one-on-one interview with her. Gracia arrives amidst intense media scrutiny and flashing cameras. He introduces himself, projecting an aura of immense power and authority. Reporter Kim Hana formally greets him, appearing visibly tense during the meeting. Xian Zhang warns his team to avoid provoking such a dangerous individual. Xian Zhang identifies Gracia as the world's strongest player following Phantom's disappearance. He warns that Gracia's overwhelming power poses an existential threat to the entire player alliance. The aftermath of a brutal encounter is shown, leaving a blood-soaked room in its wake. A witness is shocked to realize a forbidden player PK has occurred in the real world. The victim protests, claiming Gracia strictly prohibited player killing to prepare for the upcoming invasion. He warns of the dire consequences if Gracia discovers the crime, but the assailant dismisses the threat. The attacker brutally strikes, taunting the victim to call upon Gracia for help in his final moments. A dark silhouette stands over the bloody aftermath, signifying the completion of the forbidden act. Following a bloody massacre, a system alert confirms a ranking update and the acquisition of exclusive rights to a secret auction house. Randolph is suspected of being the legendary Phantom, as his overwhelming scores are impossible for any ordinary player to achieve. Knowing his aggressive nature, it is anticipated that he will immediately tackle the main quest, providing a perfect opportunity to intercept him. Driven by intense murderous intent, Randolph swears a blood oath to personally ensure his target's death. A massive presence shakes the ground, sending up towering clouds of dust. Giant, scaly claws crush the earth, revealing the creature's immense scale. A terrifying, multi-headed dragon emerges from the debris with glowing red eyes. Two mysterious figures calmly observe the colossal beast looming over the horizon. The protagonist reflects on his luck after an unexpected encounter while registering a sewer waypoint. He stands victorious over a massive mutant monster rat he successfully successfully defeated. From the creature's remains, he harvests a rare and powerful glowing core. The system identifies the loot as a mutant monster rat core, which unlocks a hidden trait to strengthen beast souls. New materials allow the protagonist to evolve his Hydreigon, significantly accelerating its arrival. Hudson's associate confirms that all final matters at the casino have been handled according to instructions. The team agrees that abandoning the casino is a necessary sacrifice for the sake of their long-term objectives. Recognizing the risks of their journey, the associate pledges his full trust and loyalty to the Starbearer. The protagonist notes Isabella's impressive hunting skills and her unsettling ability to perceive everything around her. Isabella recognizes the protagonist's extraordinary potential and resolves not to let this rare opportunity pass her by. A brief, skeptical exchange follows as the two begin to align their interests. With financial burdens cleared, the protagonist focuses on leveling up, while Isabella reveals she can read his true thoughts. A companion asks where they are headed, realizing the protagonist hasn't disclosed the plan yet. The protagonist reveals they are searching for a masterpiece with the power to grant wishes. He identifies the Tower of Spirits as their goal to fulfill a request and begin his next major quest. The team moves toward a luminous, sun-drenched forest where their next objective awaits. The group arrives at a luminous forest filled with a strange, magical aura. Unimpressed by the surroundings, the associate notes that the area appears to be nothing more than a common forest. The protagonist quickly dismisses this skepticism, insisting that the location is far from ordinary. He reveals they are in Basrock Forest, the entrance to the Tower of Spirits where the legendary spirit tree grows. The protagonist explains that a spirit tree acts as a temporary gateway, possessing the power to bridge the world to the spirit realm. He notes that the specific path leading toward the Tower of Spirits only becomes accessible during the moments of dusk. Sensing trouble upon reaching the landmark, he pauses to inspect the tree and realizes the connection to the spirit world feels broken. To his dismay, he discovers the ancient tree has been dead for a long time, leaving their path forward in jeopardy. The protagonist realizes that it isn't just the spirit tree. The entire forest is decaying, and no new spirits have been born there for a long time. Faced with a dead gateway, he draws a radiant sword, admitting that he must resort to a questionable method since there is no other choice. His confused associate watches from a distance, questioning what the Starbearer intends to do with such a drastic approach. With a firm grip on his glowing weapon, the protagonist prepares to force a path forward despite the risks involved. The protagonist channels immense energy into his sword, preparing for a decisive blow. His allies watch in stunned silence, caught off guard by the sheer intensity of his power. With a powerful leap, he unleashes a radiant arc of energy directly against the massive trunk. The devastating strike completely severs the ancient tree, sending it crashing to the forest floor in a cloud of debris. The associate screams in terror, fearing that destroying the tree has permanently blocked the only entrance to the Tower of Spirits. Just as despair sets in, a brilliant, cross-shaped light erupts from the severed stump, illuminating the entire forest. A hand reaches toward the glowing center, indicating that felling the tree was the necessary trigger to activate the hidden mechanism. The intense energy beams skyward, confirming that the Starbearer's gamble successfully forced open the gateway to their destination. A high-speed projectile strikes without warning as the group prepares to proceed. Isabella reacts instantly, shielding the associate from the lethal energy blast. She grinds to a halt after parrying the strike, visibly strained by its overwhelming power. A mysterious centaur archer emerges from the shadows, commending Isabella for successfully blocking his attack. The forest's master reveals himself as a level 9 High Dryad, an intimidating being with pointed ears and distinct tribal markings. Isabella and Hudson are paralyzed with shock as they realize the magnitude of the entity now looming over them. The Dryad admits he initially mistook them for harmless travelers and planned to let them pass through the forest in peace. His calm turns to intense fury as he condemns the group for their unforgivable act of cutting down the sacred spirit tree. Dozens of level 7 forest guardians emerge from the trees surrounding the group and mocking their lack of fear. Isabella quickly assesses the dire situation, realizing they are outnumbered by at least 50 enemies. Realizing they stand no chance in in a direct fight. She resolves to ensure the Star Bearers escape at any cost. The protagonist steps forward to confront the High Dryad, demanding it direct its anger solely toward him as the one who cut down the tree. The protagonist justifies felling the spirit tree, claiming it was the only way to lure the elusive guardians out of hiding. He attempts to initiate a conversation, asking the High Dryad to come down and talk reasonably. Blinded by rage, the guardian flatly refuses and prepares a powerful counterattack against the intruders. The protagonist challenges the Dryad's resolve, questioning if they would truly rather watch their forest perish than listen to the truth. The High Dryad is left stunned by the protagonist's bold and unexpected proposition. Stepping forward, the protagonist confidently declares his intent to restore life to the decaying forest. He warns that without the birth of a new spirit, the forest's total collapse is inevitable. He offers to provide a spirit in exchange for entry to the tower. Though the Dryad remains skeptical of his eligibility, the High Dryad mocks the protagonist, believing it is impossible for a person of his low standing to gain entry into the sacred Tower of Spirits. It is explained that entering the tower requires exceptional innate talent and the completion of legendary quests, hurdles meant to filter out all but the elite. While a typical player at Randolph's level would have no hope of success, the narrative suggests that his unique potential defies all conventional limitations. Silencing all doubts, the protagonist activates a rare hidden trait that grants him authority over nature, demanding the gate be opened so he can save the dying forest. An elf listens with deep skepticism to the claim that the outsiders have come to save the forest, branding the claim a lie. The aggressive warrior charges forward to defend the spirit tree. The confrontation intensifies as the elf screams lethal threats, while the group stands their ground. Remaining in a state of hostile fury, the elven archer vows to eliminate the perceived intruders. An authoritative command suddenly halts the hostile confrontation. The abrupt interruption leaves both parties visibly stunned. A figure swiftly descends from the trees, shifting the dynamic. Relenting, the elven warrior sternly warns the protagonist to honor his commitment. The protagonist confidently reaffirms his commitment to restoring a spirit to the forest. Doubting his success, the elven warrior decides to spare him only until his inevitable failure. The warrior then commands the group to follow him deeper into the woods. They set off together through the sun-drenched forest to complete their mission. The party arrives at a clearing where the remains of a stone spirit lie in a massive pile of boulders. The elven warrior explains that since the forest is dying, these remains are the only way to unlock the tower's gate. He issues a lethal warning, stating that the protagonist will be sacrificed to the woods if he fails the mission. Unfazed by the threat, the protagonist questions what the outcome will be once he successfully completes the task. The elf promises a significant reward if the mission succeeds. A sub-quest triggers, outlining both the potential rewards and the lethal stakes. Preparing for action, the protagonist begins channeling a surge of magical energy. A portal is successfully opened, marking the start of the dangerous journey. A blinding flash of light erupts as the portal begins to manifest. The brilliance intensifies, completely engulfing the surrounding area. Overwhelmed by the glare, the companions are forced to shield their eyes. A system alert confirms that the portal to the Tower of Spirits is now open for those granted entry. The group arrives in a radiant golden realm, visibly stunned by the sudden change in environment. The protagonist clarifies they are currently in a transition space where they must obtain permission to enter the tower. As the companions wonder who provides this authorization, they are interrupted by a sudden appearance. A small, helmeted fire spirit emerges, acting as the entity they must encounter to proceed. The group considers capturing the spirit, but stops to admire its unexpectedly cute appearance. The protagonist watches silently as the small entity approaches him for inspection. A moment of tense silence follows while the spirit carefully evaluates the outsider. Recognizing the protagonist's activated druid affinity, the spirit grants them permission to climb the tower. The protagonist confirms his companions are trusted allies, prompting the spirit to grant the entire group entry. The spirit then reveals a crucial condition, stating that their journey forward cannot be taken together. Each person is forcibly separated. As the spirit explains that everyone must face the tower's trials individually. Despite the sudden separation, a companion remains determined, promising to return to the protagonist's side shortly. Panic ensues as the group's bodies begin to dissolve during the teleportation process. The spirit reassures them that time flows differently within the tower, urging them to climb without worry. Offering a final wish for luck, the spirit oversees the protagonist's transition into the trial. The system officially activates a new main quest, tasking the druid with successfully climbing the tower. The protagonist arrives at a massive, ominous gate marking the entrance to the Tower of Spirits. He observes the daunting structure, reflecting on how long it has been since his last visit. Gazing up at the giant carving, he questions what specific form the upcoming trial will take. It is explained that trials vary by elemental affinity, designating a wind-based challenge for his companion. Hudson is assigned a water trial tailored specifically to his elemental affinity. The protagonist realizes his own trial is unique because he possesses an affinity for every element. The stone gate pulses with energy as it senses the protagonist's overwhelming and rare power. The tower expresses amazement at his ability to harbor conflicting elements that normally cannot coexist. The protagonist identifies his challenge as the Trial of Chaos, a unique test stemming from his rare void element affinity. The massive gate opens with a blinding flash, officially initiating an unprecedented trial that has never been attempted before. Stepping into the light, he is cautioned to remain vigilant as he ventures into uncharted territory. He enters a vast, empty space under the final warning that failure to withstand the chaos will result in his permanent disappearance. Entering the Trial of Chaos, the protagonist reflects on his long history with the world of Pangenia. He recalls his 5 years of dedicated gameplay, having mastered more of the game's lore than anyone else. Despite his vast expertise, he admits that the game still hides countless mysteries and unexplored depths. Motivated by the allure of the unknown, he prepares to face the extreme difficulty of these mysterious regions. Driven by a love for discovery, the protagonist embraces the mystery of the uncharted trial. He draws his blade, determined to conquer a challenge that has never been opened before. With a resolute declaration, he leaps into the fray, aiming to become the first to clear the trial. Upon entering, he is met by a mysterious, long-haired figure waiting within the depths of the chaos. A formidable, silver-haired warrior reveals himself as the opponent within the trial. The protagonist is shocked to recognize the figure as Wilhelm, a character he personally raised and developed. He reels in disbelief, questioning how his own creation has manifested as a lethal adversary. The battle begins instantly as the two engage in a violent, high-speed clash of blades. Wilhelm's overwhelming speed and power catch Randolph off guard, forcing him to endure a devastating opening assault. Pushed to his absolute limits, Randolph barely manages to withstand the silver-haired warrior's relentless and lethal pressure. He grapples with the irony of the situation, realizing he must now find a way to conquer the very rank 1 character he spent years developing. The confrontation peaks as their weapons collide in a massive explosion of energy, leaving Randolph to wonder if securing a victory is truly possible. A spinning blade whistles through the air, marking the beginning of a relentless and even more dangerous offensive. Randolph stares in shock as he finally understands the true, overwhelming nature of the opponent he must face. A shadow figure with glowing red eyes looms over him, representing a trial designed to be completely impossible for any player. A massive explosion of light engulfs the battlefield, leaving him to marvel at the game's brutal and insane level of difficulty. The sword slams into the ground with a heavy impact, dust and debris exploding outward from the strike. System messages confirm his equipment remains intact, with armor, helmet, and shoes still active after the clash. He realizes the blade failed to cut through the enemy's arm completely, meaning the monster's attack power is not enough to break his defense. Studying the enemy's build, he compares it to known opponents and concludes that its stats are closer to a weaker benchmark than expected. connected, multiple system effects activate at once. The set option, swiftness, and synergy buffs trigger together, surrounding him with powerful wind pressure. Using the amplified force, he launches upward, his speed and movement fully enhanced. With these effects active, fear no longer has a place. A violent impact follows as he dives down, the attack crashing with explosive force and shaking the battlefield. As the dust settles, a new figure stands revealed. Calm and composed, he shows no damage, proving the attack failed to break his defense. The white-haired man narrows his eyes, instantly sensing the incoming attack and preparing to counter. The red armored fighter spins mid-air, channeling all his momentum into a downward sword strike aimed straight at his opponent. The blade slams into the ground with crushing force as the blue armored man braces himself, his footing cracking under the impact. The collision sends shockwaves through the battlefield, dust and debris erupting upward as both fighters are forced into a direct power clash. The white-haired man lies against the shattered ground, silently staring upward as he steadies his breathing. He calmly speaks, questioning whether his opponent has returned to reclaim the glory of his past. Hearing those words, the red armored fighter's expression tightens in shock, unable to hide his confusion. Before he can react, a sudden counterattack lands. The realization hits him mid-impact what seemed impossible has just happened. The white-haired man slowly raises his hand, forming a strange gesture as if preparing a technique instead of defending. The red armored fighter lunges forward in anger, shouting in confusion and smashing his fist down with full force. The impact lands directly, blood spraying as the white-haired man's body takes the hit head-on without dodging. Staring back with burning eyes, the white-haired man endures the blow, while his opponent explodes in rage, accusing him of being a fake as the fight turns even more brutal. Blood streams down the white-haired man's face as he staggers, barely keeping himself upright after taking another heavy blow. The red armored fighter steps in without hesitation, pressing the advantage and striking while his opponent is still exposed. A system alert flashes as he quickly activates an HP potion, crushing it in his hand to trigger its effect. Green light surrounds his body as his wounds rapidly recover. Standing tall again, he finishes the potion calmly, fully restored and ready to continue the fight. He swallows the last potion, green light still lingering around his body as the healing effect finishes activating. Regaining his composure, he notes that stocking up on potions beforehand was the right call, especially using the money earned earlier. Across the battlefield, the white-haired man steadies himself as dark energy ripples around him, his gaze sharpening with renewed focus. He admits that without those preparations, the outcome would have been disastrous, as both fighters lock eyes again, ready for the next exchange. He admits that without those preparations, the outcome would have been disastrous, as both fighters lock eyes again, ready for the next exchange. The scene shifts outside to a tall building under a clear sky, signaling the end of the intense confrontation. Inside, the interview room falls quiet as the interviewer formally concludes the meeting. She remarks that the journey must have been difficult, acknowledging the effort it took to reach this point. The man leans back calmly and offers his thanks, bringing the interview to a composed and controlled close. The man calmly replies that the trip wasn't difficult, then reveals that now the interview is over. He has a personal question to ask. Surprised, the reporter turns toward him as he clarifies that it's a simple question meant specifically for her. He brings up the article she wrote about the mysterious man who rode atop the monster, referencing the exclusive report she published. Leaning forward, he asks her to tell him everything she knows about that man, insisting on every detail she witnessed that day without leaving anything out. The battlefield is left in ruins, bodies scattered across the cracked floor as blood stains the surrounding walls. Dust and wind continue to swirl through the area, revealing the scale of destruction left behind after the clash. From above, the aftermath becomes clear. Fallen enemies lie in a wide circle, all cut down in a single exchange. At the center, the red armored fighter remains standing, leaning on his sword and catching his breath, the sole survivor of the carnage. The red armored fighter steadies himself and wonders how much time has passed, realizing he has already defeated dozens of enemies and is nearing his limit. The only relief is that no new monsters are being summoned. With the battlefield finally quiet, he assumes the floor is likely ending. As he moves forward, he admits he has run out of potions, leaving him with no room for mistakes if another threat appears. Suddenly, his footsteps on something unexpected. The contact makes him pause, sensing that a clear sign or change is about to occur. The Chiid Mamba cycles through its 4 attack patterns and briefly falls into confusion after exhausting them, giving him a narrow opening. He uses the Fairy Queen's tear to equip Michaela's armor and Hermes' shoes, then activates Swiftness and Celestial Dragonborn to counter the final assault. A powerful gale disperses the poisonous fog. Despite taking heavy damage, he survives by using his remaining HP potions and pushes forward. After defeating the Chaos Spirits, the scene later shifts to an interview, where questions about the mysterious rider suggest the incident's truth is not yet over. Chiid Mamba unleashes its 4 attack patterns, but each one is read and dodged. After exhausting them all, the monster enters brief confusion. He activates his gear and skills together, using speed and wind to clear the fog and close the distance despite heavy injuries. His sword breaks through the defense, finishing Chiid Mamba as its power proves insufficient. Chaos Spirits appear immediately, mocking him and declaring the real trial hasn't begun yet. He steadies himself, ready for the tower's next challenge. A glowing barrier appears ahead, and the Chaos Spirits reveal that the real trial begins beyond it. Just reaching this point has already pushed him to his limits. The spirits mock him, saying the earlier battle was never meant to be cleared and questioning whether he can endure what comes next. They warn him that beyond the barrier are not 1 or 2 enemies, but hundreds far stronger than anything he has faced so far. As countless figures emerge, all identical and waiting, the truth becomes clear. The true trial of the tower has finally begun. The Chaos Spirits surround him and demand he give up, insisting he will never clear the tower and warning that continuing forward means certain death. They tempt him with an offer, proposing a contract if he surrenders, promising safety and rewards in exchange for abandoning the trial. The deal escalates as they offer rare equipment locations and powerful chaos-type skills, claiming they can grant him unmatched strength. Ignoring the temptation, he walks straight toward the barrier, sword in hand, choosing the trial over shortcuts as the tower's true challenge looms ahead. The Tower of Spirits reveals its rules. Each trial grants a different spirit egg. Fire grants a fire spirit egg. Wind grants a wind spirit egg. And hatching an egg allows a contract with that spirit. He realizes he entered the trial of chaos, a path never opened before. Naturally, he assumes the clear reward should be a Chaos Spirit Egg. Spirit eggs are extremely rare, and a Chaos Spirit Egg should be a top-tier reward. However, the spirit's desperation to form a contract makes him suspicious. Looking beyond the door, he concludes there may be a reward even greater than a Chaos Spirit Egg waiting ahead. The Chaos Spirits shout for him to turn back, calling his decision foolish and warning that this is his last chance to retreat. He acknowledges the danger ahead, knowing thousands of enemies wait beyond the door, far more than anything he has faced so far. Despite being exhausted and low on potions, he reveals he has already memorized their attack patterns from earlier encounters. Realizing this, he decides he no longer needs potions or hesitation, stepping forward with confidence as the spirits react in shock. He calmly declares that he will simply repeat the patterns he has already learned, no matter how many times it takes. With complete confidence, he states that as long as he keeps doing that, clearing the trial is inevitable. The Chaos Spirits fall silent, caught off guard by his logic and resolve, unable to immediately refute him. Amused and impressed, they mock him but also acknowledge his determination as he steps fully into the real trial. He steps into a vast golden space, sensing that he has reached somewhere completely different from before. As he looks around, a system message appears, confirming he has ascended to the top of the tower. The notification declares the main quest complete and begins calculating the results of his trial. Realizing the impossible journey has truly ended, He stands still, waiting to see what reward awaits him next. A spirit appears and congratulates him for successfully climbing the tower, acknowledging his achievement. The spirit explains that his companions are safe and confirms his success without conditions. It reveals the truth. If he had accepted the Chaos Spirit's contract, he would have been trapped serving them forever, proving he made the right choice by refusing. The shadows tempt him to quit, but he ignores them and walks toward the barrier. After enduring endless chaos and memorizing every pattern, he steps through calmly. Light erupts, the quest completes, and the Tower of Chaos is cleared. The spirit confirms his victory as the Chaos reward finally appears. The Chaos spirits mock him and offer a contract if he gives up. He ignores them and steps forward, choosing to face the trial head-on. The tower traps him in endless illusions, but he memorizes every pattern and repeats his movements without relying on potions. After countless repetitions, the chaos collapses. The system announces that he has cleared the Tower of Chaos. He receives the Chaos Spirit Egg, triggering a violent reaction as a hidden trait awakens, proving this trial permanently changed him. The system announces his reward, revealing that he has obtained not one, but 2 Spirit Eggs. A Chaos Spirit Egg forms first, radiating unstable and violent energy in his hands. Before he can react, a second reward appears, the Heavenly Spirit Egg, glowing with pure golden light. Suddenly, a new system notification appears. He has obtained a Heavenly Spirit Egg. In the middle of the chaos, a radiant egg wrapped in glowing feathers materializes in his hand, burning with divine energy. The description explains that it is an unknown egg that fell from the heavenly realm, said to exist at the end of light, darkness, and chaos, something only celestials can see and hatch. He stares at it in shock, barely able to process what he's holding. If this is real, then the powers from Pangea are no longer confined to the game. The system mentions that only celestials can see and hatch the egg, the heavenly race that resides in the heavenly realm. His mind races. If he obtained it, does that mean his hidden trait is connected to the heavenly race? Maybe heavenly isn't just a title, but proof of something deeper. Still unsure, he asks if anyone knows what the egg truly is. The only response he gets is that it's clearly no ordinary item. Then another presence reacts. The Spirit Kings are showing interest in it, and that realization makes his expression turn serious. This egg is far more important than he thought. The Spirit Kings, some of the strongest beings in existence, and the key mediators of Pangea, are showing interest in the egg, realizing that he understands this item holds tremendous value. For now, he can't figure out what kind of egg it truly is. The system confirms that the Heavenly Spirit Egg has been stored in his inventory, and he decides he'll hatch it later to uncover the truth. Then a massive notification appears. Main Quest 3. Climb the Tower completed. He has become the first ever to conquer the Tower of Chaos, an unprecedented achievement. Total score, 240 points. The Hall of Fame will be updated. One by one, constellations react. Luck, Adventure, even a Cursed Constellation, and the Guide of Black Light. All of them upgrade his rewards. The owner of the Heavenly Spirit Egg has officially caught the attention of the stars. More constellations begin showing interest, even those connected to Dronet's sanctuary. He realizes these aren't ordinary beings, they're the constellations of the 100 Stars Temple. To think that 5 of those high and mighty existences would take notice of him, it's overwhelming. One after another, notifications stack up, each upgrading his rewards. The constellations of the 100 Stars Temple are powerful entities who play major roles in Pangea. Similar to the Spirit Kings, their influence stretches across the entire setting. From a player's perspective, staying on their good side is crucial. They can assign special quests directly or boost the rewards depending on how well you perform, and now their eyes are on him. He remembers that in the game's setting, the constellations loved dramatic human stories. Seeing how things unfolded, he realizes they must have enjoyed the Trial of Chaos, something never shown before in Pangea's history. Because of their interest, the grade of his rewards is being transcended. The system announces that he can now choose 2 rewards from 20 shortlisted options. Looking at the overwhelming light of the constellations and the upgraded benefits, he understands that this outcome far exceeds his expectations. Sometime later, Isabella and Hudson also clear the tower and step outside. As the golden light fades, they see a lone figure standing ahead, proof that someone conquered it before them. After clearing the tower, Isabella receives a wind spirit egg as her reward, while Hudson obtains a water spirit egg. The number of spirit eggs given as rewards is decided randomly. Fortunately, Isabella ends up with 2 spirit eggs instead of 1. Remembering her promise to the Dryads, she chooses to give one of the eggs to them, keeping her word without hesitation. And if one day they hatch the wind spirit and release it back into the forest, it may restore something that was once lost, hinted at by the faint smile forming on the Dryad's face. In Basrock Forest, the Dryads explain that if the wind spirit is released back into nature, the forest can regain its lost vitality. As a token of gratitude, they present the group with their greatest elixir, Mandragora. It's made from a 1,000-year medicinal herb that absorbed the forest's life force. The sheer energy radiating from it shocks everyone. Even standing near it feels overwhelming, proving just how rare and powerful it is. In the end, they entrust it to Isabella, the one who gave them the spirit egg. With this, Isabella is bound to grow even stronger. The system announces that Basrock Forest has received the wind spirit. The sub-quest is complete, and he earns the title Dryad Friend, along with the forest's gratitude. A new teleport waypoint is unlocked. The Hall of Fame updates once again. He ranks first in the tower clear standings with 240 points, securing a main quest privilege as a bonus. The chosen privilege is Guardian Wall, now upgraded to level 11. It protects his logged-out body from danger and warns him if something happens. For 30 seconds, it can nullify attacks of 1 star or below. Hearing that, he feels relieved. At least now, when he logs out, his real body won't be completely defenseless. He realizes how the privilege truly works. When he logs into Pangenia, it protects Park Hyunyoung in reality, and when he returns to reality, it protects Randolph inside Pangenia. At the same time, there are only 72 hours left before the broken golden scale fragment expires. The more fragments he gathers for the future, the better his chances. As he stands there thinking, someone calls him Starbearer. He turns to face them calmly, his expression steady. Meanwhile, Isabella thanks him, saying she never expected to obtain a spirit egg. Determined, she says she wants to hatch it as soon as possible, believing the spirit will help solve her problem. He recalls that the path from floor 9 to 10 won't be easy. Alone, it would be difficult, but if she can borrow the power of a spirit, it should be possible. He mentions there's somewhere he needs to stop by before heading back and asks if she wants to come along. Without hesitation, she agrees, saying she owes him a huge favor. She even decides that once they return, she'll buy a spirit incubator first so she can hatch the egg properly. Grateful for her determination, he simply thanks her with a faint smile. With that settled, they prepare to move out together, the rooftops of the town glowing under the fading sunset as their next journey begins. They arrive at the place he mentioned. She asks if this is the stop he was talking about, but the tense atmosphere immediately feels strange. Suddenly, a man screams that someone was here. People lie collapsed on the ground, and panic spreads through the street. She looks confused, but he quickly tells her to stay quiet, his expression turning serious as he scans the surroundings. When she asks where they are going, he answers firmly it's the Knight's Garden, the territory of Marquis Weiser. He explains that this is where Hudson's fiancée lives. Hudson immediately panics, thinking he's being dragged there to propose even though he's not ready. Calmly, he tells Hudson not to make a fuss. He's not asking him to propose. He simply has something he wants to personally ask Serengeti. Hudson looks confused, wondering what kind of question could be so important that they had to come all the way here. But as they move deeper into the area, something feels wrong. The windows are shattered, people lie collapsed in the alley, and the tense silence suggests something bad has already happened. As they move further in, they see people dressed in black, heads lowered. The mood is heavy, and the entire area is silent. At the center stands a tall stone monument engraved with countless names. It becomes clear they're in the middle of a memorial service. He studies the monument carefully while the others watch. The atmosphere feels tense, as if something tragic recently happened. He asks if anyone recognizes the names carved into the stone. After a brief look, the answer comes back no. None of them know these names. He quietly admits that he knows why they ended up like this. The 500 names carved into the gravestone all belong to the knights who followed him into the great expedition. Fresh white flowers lie beneath the monument as grieving families stand nearby. Seeing their sorrow, he realizes he never once found it strange that he didn't know their names. He never even tried to remember them. To him, they weren't important figures, just ordinary NPCs in the game's setting. Even if they fought and died for him, he had treated it as nothing more than part of the scenario. But standing here now, that thought feels heavier than ever. The cries suddenly grow louder. A grieving mother collapses, screaming for her son to be returned, blaming him for everything. Another voice breaks through the square, asking why her child never came back like he promised. The accusations echo through the crowd, each word filled with pain. The families demand answers, reminding him of the promises made before the expedition. Their grief isn't part of a game, it's painfully real. Unable to face them, he turns and begins to walk away. As someone calls out asking where he's going, he leaves the memorial behind, carrying the weight of their voices with him. One woman breaks down completely, screaming that she can't understand how this could have happened. Her grief overwhelms her as she cries out in agony, unable to accept her son's death. Her body gives out and she collapses to the ground in front of the monument. Watching from a distance, he clenches his fist tightly, the sound of her cries echoing in his mind. As the woman collapses, people rush toward her in panic. Someone shouts for help, saying she's fallen. He immediately kneels beside her while others look at him. Calling him the Star Bearer, Isabella steps closer, waiting for his decision. Without hesitation, he lifts the unconscious woman in his arms and tells Isabella they're heading to the relief station. They carry her to the Goddess Church relief station, where the wounded and grieving are being treated, the cries of others echoing through the hall. Inside the Goddess Church relief station, the situation is chaotic. Beds are filled, and there are far too many patients for the limited space. He notices that it's not just the number of injured people, it's the lack of staff. Even in one of the top 3 cities of the kingdom, the relief station is severely understaffed. It becomes clear that the problem isn't only the tragedy itself, but how the place is being managed. Something about the system feels wrong. As he observes the situation, a church member approaches with a polite smile and confirms that they are the outsiders who brought Sister May here after she fainted. The church member thanks them warmly, saying they could have just passed by but chose to help. He responds calmly, listening to what the man has to say. With a smiling face, the church member explains that to operate the relief station, they collect donations from visitors. He adds that even a small contribution around 50 gold would be a great help in supporting the patients. Hearing this, he pauses and asks directly if they're charging money for treatment. The atmosphere immediately turns tense. He questions why a relief station run by the Goddess Church isn't funded by the city itself. Donations shouldn't be necessary in one of the kingdom's wealthiest cities. He points out that hundreds of gold circulate daily, yet they're demanding an amount equal to a normal citizen's monthly wage just for treatment. On top of that, wasn't it forbidden to take personal donations? The church member hesitates before admitting they don't have a choice. From now on, they were ordered to collect donations to keep the relief station running. When he asks who gave that order, the answer comes quietly: Priest Andrew. The name immediately sharpens his expression. The church member insists it's true, but he immediately rejects the idea. He knows Priest Andrew, and that's not the kind of person he is. Priest Andrew is a high-ranking priest of the Goddess Church, serving the twin goddesses. His reputation is spotless and widely respected. In the game's setting, Andrew is an NPC who gives honor-related quests. He's written as a devout and upright figure, someone defined by faith and integrity. So the thought of that same Priest Andrew secretly taking personal donations doesn't make sense. The contradiction only deepens his suspicion. As he thinks back, the signs start lining up the poorly maintained buildings he saw on the way here and the vagrants sitting openly in the streets. Even the relief station, which should be properly managed, is clearly struggling. For a major city, this level of disorder doesn't make sense. This place should be wealthy, even if it isn't as rich as Arcana, yet everything feels neglected and unstable. Looking up at the grand buildings stands towering under the bright sky. He can't help but wonder what on earth happened to this city. Elsewhere, inside a lavish room, a servant nervously warns his lord that he has already had too much to drink. In response, the drunken noble hurls a bottle, smashing it as the servant begs him to stop. The noble shouts at him to shut up and orders the rest of the alcohol to be brought immediately. The man indulging himself without restraint is none other than the lord of the Knight's Garden, Marquis Weiser. Back at the relief station, he states firmly that he needs to speak with Priest Andrew in person and demands to be taken to him. The church staff hesitates, explaining that it will be difficult since many people are waiting to receive treatment from the priest. Ignoring the excuse, he calmly calls out to Hudson, signaling that he has already made up his mind. Hudson steps forward and drops a heavy pouch onto the table. The staff member stares at it in shock, asking nervously what it is. He calmly states that it's a donation 50,000 gold. Then he adds that if they allow him to meet Priest Andrew immediately, he'll double the amount. The staff member freezes in shock. The weight of the gold is reflected in the man's widened eyes, his composure completely shattered. Without hesitation, his tone changes. He quickly offers to escort them to the priest at once. Addressing him respectfully as brother, he is led inside, where an elderly priest introduces himself as Priest Andrew and greets him formally. The priest invites him to sit so they can talk, and he agrees without hesitation. Once seated, Priest Andrew mentions that he heard about the large donation made to the relief station. He calmly remarks that it was certainly not a small amount, clearly acknowledging the weight behind the gesture. Priest Andrew admits that he heard about the 50 gold fee required just to receive a donation and assumed an ordinary amount would never be enough to secure a meeting. He asks if the young man is disappointed, questioning whether he sees him as just another old priest obsessed with money. He quietly adds that he feels ashamed and has nothing to say in his defense. The young man responds calmly, saying he was only curious. He then questions how a relief station in such a large city could end up so desperate for money, directly addressing the core issue. He confirms that they were the ones who brought Sister May after she collapsed. The priest explains that her only son joined the Demon World Great Expedition and never returned. Since then, she has lived in constant guilt, blaming herself for not stopping him. He adds that many families suffered the same fate. Countless knights followed the expedition under the Night King's banner, vowing to defeat the Demon King, but none came back. As a result, Knight's Garden lost many talented people and spent enormous resources on war funds. Though it was once a prosperous city, even heavy losses might have been overcome with time. The priest explains that the real problem began when Serengeti, a blood relative of the Lord, returned to the city. She came back having lost both her legs and has remained unconscious ever since, unable to wake despite every effort. Many priests tried to heal her, and the Lord gathered countless rare elixirs in search of a cure, but nothing worked. The constant attempts drained the city's already fragile finances. In his desperation, the Lord lost his judgment and fell into the hands of swindlers. Eventually, the territory was pushed into massive debt, using its own lands as collateral. The priest explains that after everything happened, the Lord fell into despair and bankruptcy. All city subsidies were cut off, leaving this as the only remaining relief station. If it disappears, every patient in the city will be abandoned. Because of that, even people who helped Sister May were asked for donations. They lacked beds, supplies, and manpower, so they had no choice but to demand money to keep operating. The young man listens quietly and says he understands the overall situation. Then he shifts the focus and asks whether Serengeti's unconscious state is caused by mental shock or a physical problem. The priest explains that if it were a simple mental or physical issue, they would have treated it long ago. Instead, Serengeti appears to be in a cursed state one beyond his ability to undo. The young man quietly concludes that it must be a curse. He adds that, like Isabella's case, it might be possible to break it with the blessing of the stars. After hearing everything, he thanks the priest and stands up. saying he should get going. When the priest asks why, he calmly states that he has business with Marquis Weiser. The priest hurriedly asks him to wait, explaining that since the Lord became a shell of himself, he rarely receives guests anymore. The priest says he cannot exactly repay the donation, but if given a few days, he will arrange a meeting with the Lord. The young man refuses, saying he does not have time for that. He adds calmly that the donation was not meant as repayment and that he has already gotten his money's worth, leaving the priest confused by his meaning. Just then, someone calls out loudly for Priest Andrew from outside the room. A knight announces that his lordship has ordered the guest who donated to the relief station to be brought in immediately. As he prepares to leave, he remarks that money really does open doors, noticing how quickly they let him in once he paid. He says he will be going, but the priest urgently tells him to wait. Without turning back, he thanks the priest, saying that regardless of the reason, he appreciates him helping Sister May. He adds that the donation was nothing to worry about since it was not even his money to begin with. Finally, he clarifies that this was never about the donation, it was about the priest choosing to help Sister May. As he steps toward the door, a faint smile appears on his face. He casually says it's good to see Andrew again. The priest freezes in place, caught off guard by those words. Confused, he repeats the word again, unable to understand what the young man means. Soon after, the young man is escorted to the Lord's estate, where guards stand watch in front of the grand doors. Inside, the once glorious hall feels heavy and silent, a stark contrast to its former prosperity. Marquis Weiser sits alone at a long table, calmly sipping from a cup, his expression unreadable. As he lowers the cup, his sharp gaze narrows slightly, revealing the weight of exhaustion and lingering doubt in his eyes. Marquis Weiser confirms that the man before him donated a massive sum of 100,000 gold to the relief station. He apologizes for summoning him so abruptly and formally introduces himself as the Lord of Knight's Garden. While listening, the young man studies him closely, noting how much Weiser's appearance has changed over time. He recalls that Weiser was once a renowned knight who made a name for himself across the continent with extraordinary skill in his youth. Back then, his daughter Serengeti obtained a star and became a one-star transcendent in Pangenia with his guidance, marking the peak of their family's glory. With Serengeti's rise, Marquis Weiser's house secured its position and gained influence within the Balran kingdom. She climbed the ranks and became one of the strongest figures on the continent. In gratitude for the guidance he once received, Weiser swore loyalty in return, strengthening the bond between them. He was known as a man who repaid grudges with his sword and returned kindness with unwavering loyalty. Yet now, looking at him, it is unclear whether only his body has grown worn down by time, or if his heart has broken as well. Weiser explains that Knight's Garden is facing severe financial hardship and says he invited him to discuss a proposal that could benefit them both. Without hesitation, the young man states that he will cure Serengeti. Weiser freezes in disbelief, unable to process what he just heard. Then he bursts into loud laughter, thinking the bold claim is nothing more than a joke. Weiser admits he misjudged him, thinking he was just another wealthy young master chasing rumors. He says that across the continent, people claim mentioning his daughter's name is enough to make Marquis Weiser open his coffers without hesitation. Accepting the claims seriously now, Weiser asks how much it will cost to cure Serengeti, offering hundreds of thousands in gold, even implying he would hand over his entire territory if necessary. His fist slams down with force, showing he is prepared to pay any price if it means saving his daughter. Overwhelmed with anger and desperation, Weiser demands to know what more he must give to be satisfied, admitting he has already lost too much to deceitful people. Consumed by rage, he orders his men to gouge out the supposed fraud's eyes and throw him out, believing this was all a waste of time. The guards move at once, ready to carry out the command without hesitation. But the young man remains calm and stops them, stating firmly that he does not need money and asking them to listen to him until the end. He calmly explains that he cannot guarantee success, but there is a real chance he can treat Serengeti. Weiser, still suspicious, questions why a stranger would help his daughter without demanding payment. The young man answers that this is both a debt he has come to repay and a debt he has come to collect. Revealing his identity, he declares himself the successor of of Wilhelm, the very knight to whom Weiser once swore loyalty. He asks to be taken to Serengeti, saying there is something he must confirm with her, and adds that he will heal the daughter who once sacrificed herself for her master. Weiser mocks him, repeating the claim about being the Night King's successor, laughing as if he has heard the same lie too many times before. He says the continent is filled with imposters who call themselves the Night King's heir, implying the young man is no different. His expression hardens, and in a cold voice, he orders his men to kill him and the two waiting outside as well. As the guards rush in to carry out the execution order, the young man moves first, effortlessly stopping the attack before it can reach him. His gaze sharpens, completely calm despite the chaos erupting around him. A cup shatters in his grip, the cracking sound echoing through the hall like a warning. Without raising his voice, he gives a single command to prepare the place, leaving everyone stunned by his composure and authority. The hall falls silent as fragments scatter through the air, and Weiser stares at him in shock. Unshaken, the young man declares that he will prove his claim. Soon after, they gather in the arena under the open sky, with Weiser watching solemnly as the duel is arranged. The sudden announcement shocks everyone, and they question why a duel is happening so abruptly. Some admit they are unsure of the reason, saying he has always been unpredictable. Meanwhile, the young man stands in the arena calmly, as if even he did not expect things to escalate this quickly. The opponent steps into the arena fully armed, his entire equipment set blessed by high-ranking priests, making it clear he intends to fight with everything he has. He questions once more whether the young man is truly the Night King's successor, warning him to confess now if it is a lie while he still has the chance to save his life. Unfazed, the young man remains silent for a moment, then casually reminds him to keep his promise and protect his identity. With a relaxed smile, he adds that there is no need to spread his name out of embarrassment after losing, showing absolute confidence before the duel begins. With a confident grin, he tells his opponent not to worry, swearing on his honor as a knight that the secret will remain safe. The armored knight wastes no time and launches forward at full speed, determined to test the so-called successor. Watching the sudden charge, the young man calmly notes that his opponent is impressively fast. In the next instant, the blade slices through the air toward him, the duel finally beginning in earnest. The armored knight swings down with full force, enhanced by blessed equipment and superior gear. Even so, the young man calculates calmly, noting that although many high-ranking knights fell during the Great Expedition, his opponent's base stats should still surpass his own for now. Recognizing the gear gap, he refuses to take the fight lightly and shifts his grip, preparing a precise counter. In a split second, he slips inside the attack's range and strikes back, catching the knight off guard as the tide of the duel begins to turn. The armored knight tightens his grip and presses the attack, his blade cutting down with overwhelming force. Teeth clenched, he refuses to back down, pouring everything into the strike to crush his opponent in a single blow. Steel clashes violently as the young man blocks at the last second, the impact exploding between them and shaking the arena floor. Dust swirls around them as they lock blades at close range, both still standing, the duel growing fiercer by the second. In a shocking move, he stops the blade by catching the crossguard with his forehead, blood running down his face as the steel grinds against him. The knight smirks, realizing this isn't a scam or a bluff. The man standing before him is completely fearless. With blood pouring from his head and eyes burning red, he looks up like a madman, refusing to yield even an inch. The knight admits he moves well, but coldly dismisses it as nothing more than a cheap trick as the duel intensifies. The elder recalls countless imposters who claim to be the Night King's heir, only trying to profit from his legend. But true swordsmanship cannot be copied. Having witnessed the Night King's blade himself, he knows it was something that transcended ordinary human limits. As the duel continues at blinding speed, he watches closely, searching for even a single glimpse of that legendary technique. The knight admits the young man is different from the usual frauds. He has real talent, but talent alone is not enough to be called a true successor. The knight demands he admit his lies and surrender, promising to request mercy from the Lord if he joins their ranks. Bleeding from the head, he mocks the knight's confidence, pointing out that all that pride comes from fighting with a full set of high-grade gear. In the next instant, the knight slams him down with brutal force, driving him into the ground as dust erupts across the arena. But even while pinned, he refuses to break. With a fierce glare, he declares he'll show his own strength too and twists the momentum back into the fight. The knight unleashes the full power of his items, golden energy flaring around him as he tries to overwhelm his opponent with sheer equipment advantage. For a split second, shock flashes across his face as something unexpected happens mid-exchange. The sword is suddenly knocked from his grasp and crashes into the arena floor, dust bursting up as it embeds itself in the ground. In that same instant, the young man activates his own weapon, equipping a new iron sword mid-fall and turning the tide with perfect timing. The spectators are stunned as he suddenly draws two blades at once, attacking with dual swords instead of one. Even the elder is caught off guard, questioning where he managed to obtain weapons like those. With relentless speed, he chains his strikes together, not giving the knight even a moment to breathe. The knight narrows his eyes, realizing the gaps between the attacks are shrinking. His opponent isn't fighting recklessly, he's trying to win through pure speed. The twin blades strike again and again, but sparks fly harmlessly off the knight's armor. They're simply too light to break through. Calmly analyzing the situation, the knight realizes that if his opponent had used a heavy greatsword instead, it might have pierced his defenses despite the slower speed. Instead, these fast dual swords focus on rapid hits, but they lack the raw damage needed to truly threaten him. Confident in his armor and limited defense points, the knight concludes that as long as he guards his vital spots, this speed-based assault won't be enough to bring him down. The knight's eyes widen as he notices something unusual in the middle of the exchange. In a split second, the young man abandons one blade and reaches for another, seamlessly switching weapons mid-combat. With explosive force, he brings the new sword down from above, the sudden change in weight and momentum catching his opponent off guard. Blood streaking down his face, he calmly tells them to watch closely, because now he's about to demonstrate the true swordsmanship of the Night King. A blazing system window appears before him, offering a selection of rare rewards drawn from an elite list of powerful items. Without hesitation, he focuses on a single choice, an evolved version of a simple iron sword that has reached its peak through transcendence. The description reveals its hidden strength, enhanced sword proficiency, soulbound status, and a special effect that activates when paired with other X gear. Though its base stats aren't overwhelming, the real power lies in its broken secondary effects, and he activates it through proficiency correction to unleash its true potential. Realizing he can choose two rewards, he decides to trigger the ultimate set effect by selecting the same X iron sword twice. The system confirms the acquisition, and blazing light engulfs him as the ultimate bonus activates based on the number of X items equipped. Hidden traits unlock one after another, rapidly increasing his weapon proficiency and pushing it to a new level. As his sword mastery reaches the required threshold, he begins reproducing a fragment of the Night King Wilhelm's swordsmanship, drawing directly from the memories embedded within the weapon. With blood still dripping down his face, he lowers his stance and fixes his gaze, his presence suddenly far sharper than before. The knight blocks instinctively, but this time the clash feels different. The force behind the strike is precise, controlled, and far heavier than earlier. In one fluid motion, he twists his body and brings the second blade down, chaining the attack with flawless timing. The rhythm of his strikes changes completely, each movement refined and efficient, as if a master swordsman were guiding his hands from within. The knight grits his teeth in shock, unable to comprehend the overwhelming technique now pressing down on him. He realizes the momentum has completely shifted, and if he doesn't break this rhythm, he'll be dragged into a losing exchange. Thinking quickly, he decides he must widen the distance and escape the young man's striking range. But even as he prepares to retreat, doubt creeps into his mind because he knows he has to act, yet he can't understand how his opponent's swordsmanship has reached this level. Every time the knight tries to create distance, the rapid dual blades pin him down, and when he attempts to push through with force, a heavy strike throws off his balance. His eyes widen in disbelief as he questions whether such a sword technique can even exist. It doesn't feel like simple attacks anymore. It feels as if the very space around him is being dominated and controlled. Those watching fall silent, overwhelmed by something beyond their understanding, unable to do anything but stare as the arena itself seems ruled by his blade. Marquis Weiser, and even the knights standing before him, feel a chill run down their spines. The man facing him can no longer hide his shock as sweat drips down his face. A sudden surge of energy gathers at his blade, compressing into a blinding line of light. Then, under the name of the Night King Wilhelm's swordsman technique, Genesis Heave, the arena is split by a towering strike that crashes down from above. The massive slash tears through the arena, sending shockwaves across the ground and hurling the knight backward. He twists midair and barely regains his footing, raising both swords in a desperate counter. But the impact forces his blade from his grip, the weapon crashing into the dirt as dust explodes around it. Blood trickles from his mouth as his voice falters, unable to finish the words forming in his throat. The knight crashes into the ground, his body slamming into the arena floor as dust rises around him, and the single word echoes in his mind he has lost. The victor turns his back calmly, walking away as if the outcome had never been in doubt. He calls out casually, asking if there is anything else he needs to demonstrate, leaving the spectators stunned into silence. Up in the stands, even his own lord stands speechless, sweat running down his face as he struggles to process what he just witnessed. The Marquis lowers his head and calls out calmly, ordering Lucas to step forward. Lucas immediately responds, bowing his head in acknowledgement. With a firm voice, the Marquis commands him to escort the young man with the utmost respect. Ever since they returned from the Great Expedition, she has remained unconscious, lying motionless on the bed. He explains that he tried every method possible to wake Serengeti. All the famous elixirs and renowned healers failed, and even a summoned priestess admitted the curse was too powerful for her to break. Standing beside her bed, he falls silent, staring at her pale face as the weight of helplessness settles over him. As he approaches her, a hidden trait activates, and his eyes glow faintly, while he confirms that Serengeti is under the Demon King's curse. He explains that if it truly is the Demon King's curse, then ordinary priests or even the Holy Emperor cannot remove it. However, he adds that performing an exorcism using star energy, the power of a star guardian instead of mana, might be able to break it. Though the Marquis places his trust in him, he calmly warns that he is not certain and will only attempt it once. He channels the power of the stars and declares the blessing, golden light pouring down and wrapping around Serengeti's body. The Marquis flinches in shock as the overwhelming star energy fills the entire room. A system message appears, stating that all star energy will be consumed for the attempt. But in the next instant, another notification confirms the harsh truth: there is still not enough star energy to break the Demon King's curse. As the last of the star energy fades, a new message appears: the curse's limit has been lifted temporarily. Golden light settles over her body, and at last, her eyelids tremble before slowly opening. She looks around in confusion, weakly asking where she is as the two men lean over her in shock. Overcome with emotion, the Marquis covers his mouth, his voice breaking as he realizes she has finally awakened. The Marquis rushes to her side in tears, calling out Serengeti's name and asking if she is truly awake. She looks at him weakly and answers faintly, still trying to gather her thoughts. He anxiously asks if she recognizes him, but she tilts her head in confusion and softly calls out a different name: Hudson. The room falls silent as she questions who Hudson is, leaving the Marquis frozen in shock at her unfamiliar gaze. The Marquis struggles to speak, his voice trembling as guilt fills his expression. He apologizes for arriving too late, believing that as long as she stayed alive, that would be enough. Serengeti quietly calls his name, her voice weak but steady. In his heart, he had planned to return as a member of the city council, so the Marquis would finally acknowledge him. But now, standing before her, none of that seems to matter anymore. He once believed that as long as she was alive, he could stay by her side forever. If she lost her legs, he would simply become them. Hudson convinced himself that if he never gave up, an opportunity would eventually come. But that belief was nothing more than arrogance and greed, because chances were never endless. As time passed, Serengeti's vitality kept fading, and the bright smile she once wore slowly grew thinner and weaker. The strong arm that once wielded a sword now lies thin and fragile, like a withered branch, and he realizes that if the star bearer had arrived any later, he would have lost her forever. Overwhelmed, he breaks down beside her bed, apologizing for coming so late while tears fall uncontrollably. She weakly calls out Hudson's name again and asks who he is, leaving him stunned and speechless. Before emotions spiral further, the star bearer steps in firmly, reminding them that the Demon King's curse has not been completely lifted yet. When asked what that means, he explains that at best she can only stay awake for today, and without a complete solution, she may fall asleep again. He makes it clear that to fully break the Demon King's curse, they must find another star, because his current star energy is not enough. There are only two ways to increase star energy: level up or obtain more stars. And his immediate goal is to recover the 5 stars the Night King Wilhelm dropped at his death. Due to the star successor class's hidden effect, he can inherit the previous owner's memories, but if someone else claims those stars first, Wilhelm's memories may be lost forever. After recovering 1 star, he confirms that 4 still remain, and if he wants to retrieve them quickly, he needs answers about his own death. Determined, he asks everyone to leave the room, saying he has something important to discuss with Serengeti alone. Later, in a private meeting, the atmosphere turns tense as the father confronts him directly. He is asked whether he and Serengeti secretly promised to marry, and he calmly admits it, apologizing for introducing himself so late. The father acknowledges that he is grateful he came all this way for Serengeti, but his expression hardens as he makes a firm decision. He declares that from now on, he will no longer be allowed to see Serengeti, leaving him stunned, desperate. He admits he knows he is not good enough yet, but promises to enter the city council and become a man worthy of her, begging for just one chance. However, the father explains that this is not about personal feelings, revealing that the great expedition drained their finances, and after the territory's funds ran dry, they were forced to seek help from other noble houses. When their territory collapsed, the first hand that reached out was Duke Xin's house, a powerful family in the Valen Kingdom strong enough to rival the king. Duke Xin lent them an enormous sum of money on one condition: that Serengeti would be sent to him. At the time, with no other options and her treatment as the priority, he accepted the offer. He convinced himself that for the sake of Duke Xin's reputation, they would not mistreat a girl they had taken in, even if she never fully recovered. And so, with a heavy heart, he declares that in 1 month, Serengeti will be sent to Duke Xin's house. The father insists that sending her away is an unavoidable decision to protect both the territory and Serengeti, telling him to forget about her as well. After a heavy silence, he steps forward and finally reveals his identity. He declares that he is the successor of the Night King, Wilhelm, and that he came to deliver news of the king's final moments. But Serengeti weakly rejects his claim, calling it a lie and insisting that Wilhelm had no successor. Knowing she would never accept vague words, he speaks honestly, just as a closest aide should. He reminds her of the day she first faced a star, when everything began to change. He reveals that she had always been afraid that if she consumed a star and transcended, she might lose herself and stop being Serengeti. Back then, he could not understand the anxiety hidden inside her, but now he finally sees it clearly. She is shocked, saying that what he mentioned was something only she and Wilhelm should have known. He calmly explains that at the time, he only offered words of encouragement, just as Wilhelm would have done. But looking back now, he realizes her true fear was not transcending itself, but losing the love she held for Hudson. Hearing this, her eyes widen in disbelief, shaken by how deeply he understands her heart. He calls her name gently, and in her fading memory, she sees the moment she stood before a star, frozen in hesitation. In that memory, Wilhelm firmly tells her to stop overthinking and move forward, pushing her to seize the chance in front of her. Back in the present, tears gather in her eyes as she begins to realize the truth. He admits that although circumstances changed his appearance, he is truly Wilhelm's successor, and if she wishes, he can share even more of the memories he inherited. He explains that back then he was merely a player, unaware of the deeper meaning behind Wilhelm's words, and what he said was nothing more than a simple choice of encouragement. However, thanks to the hidden effect of the star successor class, he can now read the memories contained within the star once certain conditions are met. To him, those memories feel so vivid that it is as if he truly lived them, not just witnessed them. Understanding this, she accepts his identity, thanking him for believing in her, and when she asks if his changed appearance means he has become a sinner, he calmly answers yes. She warns him that from now on, he must be careful of the hunters, but he calmly replies that he already knows and is not worried. He explains that players who possess others while keeping memories from before death are called sinners, and the NPCs who specialize in hunting down those sinners are known as hunters or reapers. Setting that aside, he shifts the focus to something more important. He wants to know what truly happened on the day of his final battle, when he is certain he killed the Demon King. He recalls that he was certain he drove the path of light straight into the Demon King's core, and the monster's body began to collapse. However, in that final instant, something felt wrong. As flames and dark energy clashed around him, everything suddenly stopped, and right after that frozen moment, his consciousness was completely cut off. In the end, it felt like a sudden game over, and just like that, he died. Now, staring at Serengeti, he urges her to tell him the truth about what really happened. He asks her what took place behind his death that day, determined to uncover the hidden part of the story. As the room grows heavy with tension, he waits in silence for the answer that could change everything. The Demon World Great Expedition was led by Wilhelm himself, gathering an unprecedented force of 200,000 elite troops. The soldiers' morale soared as they prepared to become heroes of the first great expedition into the Demon World. Believing victory was within reach, using all the data they had collected, they carefully designed a meticulous operation where no single error was allowed and every variable was accounted for. Everything was perfectly calculated, at least. It was supposed to be perfect. Amid the overwhelming purple storm of demonic energy, she stood battered and covered in blood, yet she refused to fall. Looking forward with trembling eyes, she pleaded for him to continue onward, even if she could no longer move. She declared that she would grant him her blessing, even if it meant sacrificing her own life to push him ahead. With a strained smile, she admitted that this was as far as she could go, urging him one last time to move forward without her. Even with half her face destroyed and blood covering her body, she forces herself to speak, telling him there's no time to stop and urging him to hurry. She admits she was wrong to cling to long-cherished wishes and tells him he must keep pressing forward, leaving everything behind her. In the end, after so many lives were sacrificed as stepping stones, she whispers that it's over. Despite paying such a terrible price, they couldn't even reach the Demon King's feet, and their so-called perfect expedition collapsed in despair. From beneath the shattered ground, demon soldiers with glowing red eyes began crawling out, rising again as if death meant nothing to them. They growled and staggered forward through the purple haze, their movements unnatural and relentless. He realized something was terribly wrong. The enemy was attacking, as if they already knew every one of their strategies and movements. It made no sense unless there was a traitor among them, someone secretly colluding with the demons from within their own ranks. In the end, their downfall didn't come from the outside, it began from within the expedition itself, as if everything had been doomed from the start. A monstrous demon lunged at him with glowing red eyes and gnashing fangs, closing in before he could react. At that critical moment, he refused to accept defeat, declaring that it wasn't over yet. Then a blinding explosion erupted across the battlefield, light swallowing everything as the clash reached its peak. As the explosion roared, a powerful strike cut through the chaos, stopping the demon's attack in an instant. Through the blinding light, a calm voice spoke, noting that he looked completely exhausted. A figure with a raised sword stood before him and told him to rest for a moment. With steady golden eyes, the warrior assured him that it would all be over soon. As he looked up in shock, he realized who had stepped onto the battlefield: the martial god. The Night King wasn't just a hero. He was like a living god whose presence alone crushed the demon's will. Before him, the demons appeared insignificant, unable to inspire even the slightest fear. With a single strike, he unleashed power so overwhelming that it reshaped the terrain itself, carving through the battlefield as if the world were made of paper. The crushing despair that had filled the battlefield vanished in an instant when that man appeared. With nothing but a single sword, he sliced straight through the the overwhelming tide of darkness. His expression remained calm and unwavering, as if the chaos around him meant nothing. Alone beneath the purple sky, he stood like an absolute force, turning what should have been certain defeat into a moment of awe. Even while supporting her injured body, he calmly tells her there's no need for her to push herself, insisting that he has already recovered enough. As they walk through the ruined battlefield, she realizes the horrifying truth. Aside from the wounded who were sent back, they are the only two left alive. Understanding the total annihilation of their forces, he firmly tells her that at the very least, she must survive and return. When he brings up how she kept saying she wanted to see Hudson again, she immediately denies it, flustered despite the devastation around them. Wilhelm reads Serengeti's past memory using his hidden ability and explains the concept of sinners and hunters. The Demon World expedition with 200,000 elite troops was perfectly planned, but they couldn't even reach the Demon King. It felt like betrayal from within. The martial god Night King appeared and changed the battlefield with a single strike, yet the army still collapsed. Only Wilhelm and Serengeti remained. She told him to move forward. A magic circle activated, and everything went black. Wilhelm activates the magic circle and says this game isn't easy, preparing for something drastic. Serengeti panics and calls out to him as he steps forward alone. Wilhelm tells her that when she returns, she should live freely, marry, fall in love, and live her life. It's clear he's preparing to sacrifice himself while pushing her to survive and move on. Wilhelm tells Serengeti to live well as she falls, accepting that he might not return. He realizes the expedition will fail, but the Night King saved his life so he could keep living. The battle was so horrific that even if he returned alone, no one could blame him. If he survives, he can return home, meet the person he longs for, and go back to his peaceful life. Wilhelm tells Serengeti that as long as she survives and escapes, that's enough for him. He remembers Hudson, the person he longs to see again if he makes it back alive. In a desperate move, he activates his skill, Position Swap. The sudden activation shocks Serengeti, changing the situation in an instant. A massive purple explosion erupts after the position swap activates. The battlefield goes silent as the smoke clears. Wilhelm looks shocked and calls out Serengeti's name. In the distance, her body lies on the ground unmoving. Serengeti survived the Demon King's trap, but she lost both legs. Thanks to the elixir Wilhelm gave her, she stayed alive. Wilhelm admits that back then he was too immersed in the game and acted without thinking, even pretending dramatically in-game. After the battle, he used an extreme vanishing talisman to hide Serengeti's body, preventing the Demon King from sensing her. Serengeti remembers up to that point, but Wilhelm says what he really wants to know is what happened after that. After Wilhelm hid Serengeti, the Demon King revealed himself immediately. Just as Wilhelm remembered, the Demon King was struck down. But suddenly, everything froze as if time itself had stopped. In that suspended moment, something unnatural was happening beyond their understanding. The Demon King mocks Wilhelm, calling him a monster even as a 5-star transcendent. He says Wilhelm reached this level without any goddess's divine authority, but the Demon King reveals the truth without a goddess. Wilhelm can only destroy his physical body. His essence cannot be erased, meaning the Demon King can't truly be killed. The Demon King acknowledges the Night King's strength and expresses twisted respect. As a token of respect, he declares he will use the Night King's body as his new vessel. A massive dark vortex forms, pulling everything into it. The Demon King begins transferring himself, aiming to possess the Night King's body. The Demon King mocks the Night King, saying that even a transcendent warrior cannot destroy his true essence without divine authority. He declares he will take over Wilhelm's body as a vessel and opens a massive dark vortex to claim it. Suddenly, a brilliant golden light tears through the battlefield. The goddess Pina appears. The Demon King explodes in rage, accusing her of abandoning the Night King and calling herself a goddess while letting him fight alone. The vortex clashes with divine light, shaking the entire area. Energy spirals violently as the Demon King tries to resist the holy power descending from above. Just as the darkness attempts to consume everything, the radiant light overwhelms it. The battlefield is engulfed in blinding brilliance, marking the turning point of the final confrontation. The Demon King panics as divine light overwhelms him. Enraged, he screams that he will kill Pina and swings his power wildly against the descending holy force. The battlefield shatters under the clash. Wilhelm stands at the center of the storm as darkness and light collide in a final explosion. After that moment, everything goes blank. The survivor admits he has no memory of what happened next. All he knows is this: the Demon King tried to seize Wilhelm's body, and Goddess Pina intervened at the final moment.